Okay, good afternoon, councillors, those that are joining us here in attendance and those that might be watching at their leisure after. As we do gather here today on the unceded lands of the Palawa people, we do respectfully open today's meeting at 1 p.m. Please be seated. In opening today's meeting, we also, as a part of the regulations that were amended for 2025, Regulation 8 stipulates that we inform councillors and those attending that an audio-visual recording is being made of the meeting and that language and conduct during the meeting that could be perceived as offensive, defamatory or threatening to a person attending the meeting or listening is not acceptable. We'll move through to mayoral acknowledgements, and I do have a couple of acknowledgements that I'll read here as well. Firstly, I really think it's important to acknowledge the tragic fire at Tamar Marine last night. So Tamar Marine it's been an iconic part of Launceston for more than 40 years as a family-run business that a lot of people in this community know really, really well. So seeing something like that happen to a local business, but not just a local business, a local family, it's really tough. And the scenes that we've seen through the media have really shown how impactful that was. I also want to acknowledge, as a part of that response, the emergency services around 12 o'clock that attended that. So genuinely and sincerely, we would like to put our thoughts with the owners, the staff and everybody connected to Tamar Marine. Another mayoral acknowledgement I'd like to make is for yesterday, Clifford Craig International Women's Day lunch. I want to acknowledge the incredible work that Clifford Craig do, but also the team, the board, the volunteers. Yesterday was another great example of seeing that work in action. It was so strongly attended, and the speakers between Ariane and Fiona, they were awesome, very inspiring. So I was privileged to be one of the few men that were in the room there to hear those stories and to recognise the contribution that women are making across our community every single day. And just finally, before we get into the official parts of the agenda, I really want to say a few words following the public discussion that's been around the 4-day workweek proposal. So as the Mayor, it's really important to note that my role is to represent, and our role as councillors is to represent the organisation and to engage openly with our community when issues attract, particularly in this instance, significant public attention. So throughout the discussions, it's always, I know I speak for myself, it's always my intent to provide context and to do my best to answer those questions as they do come from the community. And this example, it was also to defend the professionalism and commitment that our staff do have, whether those conversations, whether they're positive, negative, or whether they move towards the criticisms of council. However, I also want to recognise that the broader public debate around the issues, it may have caused concern or stress, in particular for some of our staff. If the debate that occurred on any of my platforms or any part of that public discussion around it, if it disappointed any of the members of our staff, I want to be really clear and state that I support you and I always will. I apologise again if any of my actions were interpreted as the opposite. The people who work for the City of Launceston, we see it every day here as councillors, as elected representatives. They care so deeply about the services that they deliver and they provide for our community. And those works, they really do matter and they really do deserve that respect. So I personally really value being approachable. I welcome conversations with our staff and with the community in both formal and informal settings, and I genuinely enjoy working alongside both. So I think it's important to note that our focus now should be to continue to work constructively together and making sure that our staff feel valued for the important role that we know that they play in serving the Launceston community, as well as ensuring that respectful and appropriate commentary remains a part of what influences the great decisions that we're privileged to be here around the table to be able to make on behalf of our community. So in moving those mayoral acknowledgements, we then go forward to our declarations of interest. So at 3, A councillor must declare any interest that a councillor has in any matter before any discussion on that matter commences. Do we have any declarations of interest? Deputy Mayor? 19.3. Any further declarations of interest? Okay, we'll move forward to the confirmation of the minutes at 4.1. We've got the recommendation being that the minutes of the ordinary meeting that were held here on the 19th of February be confirmed as true and correct record. Somebody please to move. Been moved by Councillor Palmer, seconded by Councillor Marsden. Any commentary around the minutes? To the vote, all those in favour? All councillors present, the motion is carried. 5, we've got 5.1, which is the council workshops that have been conducted as of the 26th of February. Recommendation being that council notes the council workshops conducted and attended since the last council meeting as published in this agenda. Somebody please to move. Been moved by Councillor Marsden, seconded by Councillor Britton. Councillor Marsden, any commentary? Councillor Britton is the seconder. Any further comments around the table around workshops conducted? To the vote, all those in favour? All councillors present, the motion is carried. We've got council leave of absences at 6 that will be considered as part of closed council. I don't have any community reports, I don't believe, that have been identified as a part of this agenda. So we'll move to questions by members of the public at 8. 8.1, questions on notice by members of the public that are responded to and published as a part of this readily available public document in our agenda. So 8.2, we've got questions without notice by members of the public, and we ask that there be 3 questions and names and suburbs as we do start there, please. Now, I don't have any noted speakers, but I will open up to the floor. Thank you. Councillor Marsden.
Thank you. Hi there. Victoria Wardlaw, Newstead. Just to thanks for the opportunity to be able to ask a question today. First of all, I want to say thank you for the great work that you all do, and for the initiatives such as the Foo Fighters. I see that likely about a new convention centre. These things are really important for the city, and one concern I have is around accessibility, physical access and safety within our city. And I was wondering about, there had been a review of some of the committees, and in particular of council, and one of them being the Access Committee. Just wondering if you could shine a little bit of light on what's happened there, because I haven't really kept fully up to date with everything that council's been doing.
Excellent. Thank you for the question there. And I'll just pass that to the CEO, whether we take that as notice around the review of committees.
Thank you through the Chair, and thank you for the question. Happy to take it on notice in respect to review of committees, but also happy to add that in relation to accessibility to council buildings is a separate piece of work we're doing at the moment, and through our new dedicated assets and project team equally. We have identified through building more robust asset management systems and frameworks within our organisation that a significant number, unfortunately, of our buildings and assets are non-compliant. So a lot of our investment over the coming years and our forward budget, which we'll be presenting to council shortly, will be trying to prioritise as much as our capital works program on council buildings towards doing just that, making them compliant, including things like public toilets, for example, to increase that accessibility.
Thank you, CEO. And just to add a beaming example of that at the moment is council's priority around the Princess Theatre and accessibility, that we do really value feedback, and we take that on, and I look forward to seeing that question being answered on notice in the next agenda and continuing to push that as a priority for our city. So thanks, Tori.
Thank you. Can I have another question? Yep, thank you. Okay, so retrospectively, making buildings accessible, but you know, that's terrific to have that initiative. However, you know, in planning stages and development of council projects, such as the Albert Hall redevelopment there, There have been some major concerns about accessibility and making the entry rampway probably more than 100 metres from the car park to get to. Now, for our elderly citizens and people with mobility issues, 100 metres to the entry of a building when the access previously was less than 25 metres. I just see that not having an active access community with committee with community representation may be a little bit contributing to some significant failures. With every dollar, we want to be able to invest it wisely and make it work for everyone. And so I would recommend that we try and get more community representation and really target around accessibility to make sure we're getting it right the first time around, so that we can keep the community positively engaged in political life.
Great, excellent. No, thank you for that commentary, and we'll include that commentary around the answers that we provide on notice with the committee review and how that those committees then act as informants to our policy and decision making. I think that's a really important point that you've made.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all for today.
Great.
My name's Rosalind Ives from West Launceston. Okay, I've got two questions today, and they almost dovetail into what Victoria has been asking. And I do put in a plea that we do some more action around access. We have a demographic that's an ageing. We're all baby boomers. Many of us now aren't as mobile as you people are. And we do need to have access considered. So thank you. OTs are wonderful people too. Okay, my questions today. My first is about the hop-on, hop-off bus service. Since the cancellation of the Tiger bus service some time ago, with no replacement service for inner city and surrounds for commuters, would Council consider providing a trial of two hybrid hydrogen fuel 21-seater buses with hop-on, hop-off services, with routes, for example, from the hospital through to Inveresk, and the other, say, Margaret Street to High Street? The purpose is to lessen that inner city parking demand, reduce the traffic congestion and pollution. Hobart has an existing trial of 3 hybrid electric hydrogen buses. I know they're not cheap, but it's something that we really need. From the point of view of the larger, older demographic of community members being able to shop in the inner city with greater flexibility and independence, I am evidence of how practical a smaller bus and more accessible hop-on, hop-off smaller bus service could be. There is a dearth of disability parking bays in the inner city, allowing access to central shops. A trial over winter and in spring would encourage less dependence on car commuters and access for visitors. The 20-minute traffic jams in Margaret Street and travelling to and from Inveresk congestion could be minimised. The topography of Launceston can be a challenge for maintaining walking mobility. I am dependent on driving and disability parking bays. I consider the drop-off in use of the previous Tiger bus service was caused in part by poor advertising and access. Originally, a little pocket-sized fold-up map was provided at all information centres, tourism centres and accommodation facilities throughout northern Tasmania. That would be a real boon if that could be provided in the future. My second question, gorge cultural sharing. Tomorrow, the beginnings of a council heritage project about the Cataract Gorge, with input from many contributors, begins. Whether the focus is interpretation of the numerous stories that engages geological features or cultural histories of First Nations or more recent European histories, flora and fauna, water, social and spiritual connections, would Council take the bold step of replicating the former successful Gorgeous Walks public program? I don't want to reinvent the wheel, but we do not want to throw out babies with bathwater. Volunteer support and expert-led events enable the program to enjoy huge success and consistent public support for numbers of years. It was a tool for education of the public, for visitors, educational facilities, council employees, tourist passenger buses, science and community groups, dignitaries and others, while linking important groups. The advertised 2-hour monthly sessions were organised by council and volunteers. Its value was public education provided freely for what is the beating heart of our city. Currently, there is a whole of Launceston guided storytelling tour which has hourly charges attached. Maybe the opportunity for UTAS or another established group, for example Tamer NRM, to partner with Council to recreate the program. Would Council consider re-establishing this highly valued and important gorge discovery program? I am passionate about the gorge and I always will be. Sorry, but that's me.
No, you don't need to apologise for being passionate. Excellent. So let me just quickly touch on the first question with the buses, which is a passion project of mine that we're working through at the moment, but we'll ensure that that's responded to on notice so that we've got all of the formal information there, because yes, there is the review and there's some work going on in the background around very similar, if not the same sort of proposal that I would like to see. I can't speak to the hydrogen parts of things and the inner workings, but we can definitely speak to work that's going on in that space. And we'll take on notice the gorge discovery so that we've got all of the information around what, where and how, and as you said, not throwing the baby out with the bathwater, and around what would that look like to give it some rejuvenation also. So I'll take those on notice and we'll respond to those in the public agenda.
Thanks very much.
Great, thank you, Ms Ives. Any further questions without notice? Okay.
I'll put one more.
Okay, I'll allow it because you did 2 before.
Yeah. Okay. The Regional Cities Challenge at the moment is running that little campaign for locals to identify as being a local, and I was reading in the background information on that to assist tourists, visitors and new residents that have come to the city to get to know our city. And when I first I was moved, I relocated to the city of Ballarat, I'd like to draw your attention to a program run by the city of Ballarat where they have a new residents program, and businesses actually can offer discounts. So each new resident signs up for the program and it runs for a 12-month period, and they get a booklet of vouchers that are only available to them that connects them with, plumbers, electricians, painters, the cafes, and it's really good for the local business community as well as very, very helpful for new residents. And then the council actually will put on every 3 months, do an invite to all the new residents registered for that financial year, and invite them and introduce councillors and the new residents, so then they start to be able to engage in political life, as well as it gives council an opportunity to really connect with new residents and find out where they can value add to the city and the region. And I think after speaking with, the I'm a Local campaigners, that they are quite supportive of that next step for something like that, and I just wonder if council would like to take that on notice and have a think about being able to offer such a program for new residents.
Great. Well, thank you. I can see lots of notes being taken, as well as the CEO there. And I know that Mr Tilbury is working with Launceston Central at the moment around that I'm a Local. So we'll take that on notice, and we'll ensure that we get the full breadth of information there. And as I said, councillors have been taking some notes, so it could be something that really tickles someone's fancy to push further forward than just that campaign as well. So great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, I can't stay for the whole meeting, so I'm going to be just needing to depart. So I don't mean to be rude. But
no, thank you. Thank you for coming and participating.
Thank you.
Next story. Excellent. Moving through then to agenda item number 9, 10, 11. We have no petitions, deputations or planning authority that has been identified as a part of today's agenda. We're also publishing the announcements by the Mayor every second week. So we'll move to Councillor reports at 13. Councillor reports. Councillor Harris.
Thank you, Mayor. Yep, I haven't been here for a fortnight, so I've got a couple of ones back prior to that. Starting at the oldest first, I attended the NTCA 175th anniversary of the first-class game out at the NTCA ground on the 11th of February, where we heard about the history of the game in front of a group of people from all over northern Tasmania. So it was actually quite a well-attended event and does show the history of what goes on, what did happen at the first game at the NTCA ground. Also, 22nd of February, I was the MC at Soggy Bottom Regatta, which was supported by the council's fund-raising, community grants. It was a fundraiser for Rotary, but the success has been that it's transferred from one Rotary Club, Youngtown, we've now defunct to Launceston, and it was very well received. Weather was kind to us, unlike last year when they got washed out twice, which is quite humorous with a soggy bottom. But nevertheless, they are looking forward to 2027 Soggy Bottom race, very much so. I attended a garden party held at the National Trust for the at Franklin House with the Governor. Her Excellency, the Honourable Barbara Baker AC, is on a farewell tour. She finishes up, I think, around about June this year, and so it was wonderful to represent the Council and also Rotary at that event, and also being a member of the Franklin House Committee on Council's behalf. I attended the Launceston Cup, as I'm sure many others did, on the 25th of February, which was a great event, although the crowd did seem to be smaller than normal. I did note, perhaps there's just been too many things on to keep people going to everything. Along with yourself, our Deputy Mayor and Councillor McMahon, I attended the Polly's and Pizza night, which was a Chamber of Commerce event to allow the Chamber of Commerce to have interactions on a one-on-one basis with us as councillors. And basically there was about 4 of us, there was about 20 of them, and we sat around and spoke in small groups for about half an hour at a time. So it was a great opportunity for the councillors to talk to business, but also for business to talk to us. So I do congratulate them for organising that. This week is, of course, Bike Week. I didn't ride on the Tweed ride on the 1st of, on Sunday. I didn't get washed out. I had other things to do, but I do commend everyone to the process of what Bike Week offers for our city. And today I did ride the bike to council, so that's all good. I had the Franklin House Committee, and of course this morning we met with Peter Fraser from the Sarah Group about the road safety aspect, and he included on that the road safety of everyone, that is pedestrians, cyclists, is every motorist's responsibility to make sure that all of us get home safely. With that, I'll say thank you.
Great. Thanks, Councillor Harris. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. I think after the last meeting, I attended the TAFE Launceston Chamber of Commerce networking evening, which was really well supported across the Grand Chancellor, and I think that was great opportunity for me. I think that was just post all the publicity in regard to the 4-day week, which I then posed to the community, the TAFE CEO about how he's dealing with his students in regards to what the new rules are likely to be into the future of employment. So that was something for him to go away and have a think about. I attended the Business Events Tasmania Visionary Strategy launch at Duquesne on the 24th, which was strategically aligned with a media release later in that afternoon where the announcement of the funding for the conference centre, which was fantastic for Launceston, I think very, very well received by everybody. And to be honest, I think the narrative at BET would say for every dollar that's spent, it multiplies 100, which is probably the best investment of a dollar that you can actually make in the state. So something worth doing. But I think their narrative and their vision, I think, is fantastic. On the 26th, along with Mayor and Councillor McMahon and Councillor Harris, we did go to the Police and Feature, and I have to say, it was done like a speed dating type arrangement where you sat at a table and moved around every 10 minutes to relate to it. And to be honest, I think it's something we as a council should think about embarking, because I think the knowledge that we can impart and the lessons and the things that we can learn from members of the business community, I think are actually quite valid. And I think certainly a lot of the people that were sitting on the tables I sat on didn't quite understand what we actually did, which is quite surprising for a business community. But having said that, that may be our message that's come out. So I think that's something that we, and maybe even leading into the council elections, it might be something worthwhile to get out and be a bit more proactive with the community about giving them an opportunity to talk about what your councillors do. So I think really good initiative by the Chamber, so very well received. And yesterday I had emergency services meeting, which again, Councillor Harris and others I think Mayor talking about the way the emergency service worked yesterday in regards to that unfortunate event on the other side of the Tamar River. Just shows how valuable they are and how committed they are to the major emergency areas, and the thought and the depth of planning that goes in to trying to look after an emergency event is something that we should be really, really proud of as a community. The beauty about it is it doesn't sit still. And there's a new municipal emergency management plan that's coming out, I think, by the 3rd of June, which will review things that have happened in recent times to ensure that we keep our city and its surrounds as safe as we can. So I think really good hands, and the volunteer program that goes on associated with all the things that go on are just quite staggering. And I just want to pay tribute to our staff who actually help manage and pull that all together. I think that'll do me.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. Councillor McMahon.
Thank you. Just on the back of comments around Tamar Marine and the devastating fire last night, I'd also like to recognise that Mitch and his team at Allmars next door actually lost their building as well. And I would hope that when the time is right, that council would reach out to them and see how we may assist them get back on their feet after this devastating situation.
Absolutely.
That's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you. Further councillor reports? Councillor Gibson, then back to Deb.
Thanks so much. Next meeting, I will be an apology. So I'm standing today to recognise someone who this month will depart the city of Launceston, and someone who has been involved with the organisation in some way or another for close to 45 years. And I speak of Liz Lynch, who is currently the Executive Assistant in the councillors' rooms. When you think of integrity, when you think of loyalty, when you think of someone who embodies the City of Launceston's values, I can think of no one better than Liz Lynch, who started with council as a junior in 1981, in fact, at another council that amalgamated with us. So someone who has lived amalgamation. Someone who's worked across the organisation in the General Manager's Office, the Technical Services Division, the Marketing Department, the Parks and Recreation Department, Asset Management, before joining the General Manager's Division in 2004, originally as a temporary appointee. Of course, she continues now in the current role in the General Manager's Division, servicing councillors and aldermen. And when you think of a career that's lasted 45 years in local government, and one that has involved more than 20 years working directly with the elected representatives, you can think of the conversations, the customer service requests, and the tasks that Liz Lynch has done and gone through during her time. And even today, she joined us at the top of the stairs, taking on roles. When I started at council 15 years ago, without question, the first person, and Councillor Mackenzie might be the same, the first person who contacted me was Liz Lynch. And one of the first questions she asked was, what was my fax number? Because 15 years ago, the PDF had just been invented and council still communicated via facsimile or indeed had a courier personally deliver a plastic tub to your home with the agenda included. Fortunately, we did away with that quite quickly for the majority of aldermen 15 years ago. But I wanted to stand because I know all councillors would echo my thoughts, both around this table now and indeed those that have gone before. I think of people like former Mayor Tony Peck, who had the highest regard for Liz, of Annette Waddle, who even as she was in aged care would often ring and connect with Liz. Ted Sands, who before sadly he passed away, would often connect with Liz. Ian Norton, who would ring just for a chinwag to see how Liz was going. Those were the relationships that she has shared with councillors over the time. And somehow, amongst it all, she's been able to tread that tightrope of being able to work so beautifully with professional staff in order to service the needs of councillors and aldermen. I remember some difficult times and, particularly the death of Deputy Mayor Jeremy Ball, which required a huge amount of strength to continue doing the job that was required, in fact, packing up his office. So 45 years in local government is a significant milestone. For some of us, just coming every fortnight becomes more and more of a challenge, but for Liz, she's turned up day in, day out for almost 45 years, and I'm sure I speak for everyone around this table when I say she has been an absolute delight to work with, and this organisation and us as elected representatives, and in turn our community, is very thankful for what she's done, and we will certainly miss her commitment to the City of Launceston.
Great, thank you, Councillor Gibson. And I've just got Deputy Mayor.
All right, I missed one, and Danny, thank you very much. I don't think anybody could have said it better than you did.
Yeah.
So, beautiful words as always. Person who always come into the room, always had a smile. She's had to listen to a lot of stuff going on by aldermen and councillors, and to be honest, she's never breathed the word. Confidentiality she understood completely, and she always smiled, whether she liked or disagreed. You would never really know because she just actually took on board everything you said. Mine was actually to talk about another departure, Mandy Shepherd. I did attend the farewell for Mandy last week at the Albert Hall, which actually showed off that new foyer area absolutely fantastically. And it was beautiful to listen to the words that came from the people that spoke, ex-chairs, ex-general managers of Theatre North, on what a great advocate, what a great human being, what a great leader of an organisation she has been. So again, we're going through a change period, but she's left a lasting legacy, and certainly with that view that it's the connection and the ongoing is going to be really good going forward, and I'm sure she'll be there to help us out if we need to at any stage. But a really, really great farewell for her last Friday night, and I just wish her well in retirement. She deserves it.
Great. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Any further councillor reports? Okay, we're moving forward through the agenda then to 14, which is questions by councillors. They are published and responded to as a part of this agenda. 14.2, questions without notice by councillors. Questions from councillors. Okay, there being none, we'll move forward through into 15. Written notices of motion at 15.1. We've got Councillor Gibson's Sandhill Lane notice of motion. Before we get to the recommendation, I don't believe we've got any notice for speakers. What's that one? Okay, so the recommendation being that council notes Sandhill Lane, a 260-metre laneway off Effingham Street, South Launceston, was named by council in 2012 and is currently in private ownership, providing secondary access to several properties. And, second, resolves to investigate the ownership, management and transfer of Sandhill Lane to council ownership, with any implications to be considered as part of the full report to council. So I've got Councillor Gibson as the mover. Somebody please to second. I've got the Dep to second. Councillor Gibson.
Thank you. This one is self-explanatory. It exists simply because there was a commitment made by myself at the table when a development application was being considered related to this item. I want to start by acknowledging that this is, in terms of operational, this is something that I've already spoken to our officers about, and I'm fairly certain will be included in the planned schedule of works regardless. What I'm aiming to do here is just to ensure formally that it's captured and included as something that will be investigated as the officer comments suggest, and will form part of a body of work that will enable it to be explored once and for all properly, and for the benefit of those residents who since 2012 have been engaged in a process, and I think as the development application saw last year, this is something that should happen. It makes sense to occur, and this is the formal mechanism to ensure that it is undertaken.
Great, thanks Councillor Gibson. Deputy Mayor?
I think Councillor Gibson said it all. I think this is just really formalising a lot of discussions that we had at the time of that DA, and I think it's appropriate to make sure it is formalised and dealt with one way or the other.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I've got a question, Councillor Harris.
Yeah, thank you. Just a question for the officers in regard. My recollection of visiting Sandhill Lane was that it needed some money spent on remediation of drains and others as part of it. And so will the report that comes back to us identify that, and who will actually pay for that remediation work? Will it be council, or will the existing private landowners actually pay for that before we take it over, as would be the case of a new subdivision where the road would be presented to council in a fit state for us to take over?
Thank you, Councillor Harris. Through Executive Leader Chelsea.
Thanks for the question, Councillor Harris. We're looking at this laneway as part of a broader piece of work in the housing plan. It would depend, it would be on a case-by-case basis. Obviously, if there is development in an area, a developer might contribute, but there is also an onus on current owners to contribute. These are fraught issues. Often people don't understand their obligations around shared laneways or roads that are private, so I think we'd have to negotiate that. It may be that council would be footing the bill for remediation works if those were to become council-owned assets, but at this point in time it's a bit premature to comment on what may or may not be the case for Sandhill Lane.
Excellent, thank you. Further questions, comments? Councillor Walker.
Yes, I note that the motion is worded such that it, is ambivalent or agnostic when it comes to whether council should or shouldn't take that ownership, and I'm sure that all those things that, through you, Chair, my colleague asked will be answered in that process.
Yeah.
And from there, council can make a decision. It's bring this to resolution. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any further comments? Anything to close?
Look, just briefly, and thank the speakers prior to myself. Yeah, the investigation and the broader body of work that is listed there, and the strategic leader has referenced, I think will answer all of those questions, and perhaps the deep dive into the ownership and the way that works and has worked over time will be able to bear more fruit than it did when we considered the DA. But regardless, I'm very happy to see that it is to be included in that broader body of work. What this motion asks is that it's still considered, and as resources need to ebb and flow and change over time, that at some point the body of work will be concluded, and then council will be able to decide with regard to this specific laneway, who owns it and the future ownership of it.
Excellent, thanks Councillor Gibson. Putting it to the vote, all those in favour? That's all councillors present. The motion is carried. 15.2, we have notice of motion with Councillor Gibson around the Workers' Commemorative Park. Before we get to the recommendation, I do have a noted speaker. Mr Hudson.
All right. Guy Hudson, Swan Point, founder of our brand new Workers' Commemorative Park. I could probably speak for several hours on a passionate project, but I'll let this off. I've wrote a little something that might explain what I'm on about. All right, so almost 22 years ago, my 16-year-old son was killed at work. He left in the morning and never came home again. Sometime after, my wife decided there was nowhere for us and the public to go and remember our loved ones, not to mourn their death, but to remember the good times and celebrate their lives and give thanks for what they have given us. Hence, the park, the first state commemorative park in Australia. My drive is to lift the profile of the park and the workers, the need to remember what the workers give us. We spend millions every year remembering our armed forces, and so we should, but we forget the worker. Our armed forces give us our lives and freedoms. Our workforce gives us all the tools and all we need to live those lives and freedoms. One does not work without the other. Our workers lay down their lives for us. The issue of the barbecue. The barbecue was always in the plans, but some time ago, a councillor told us we could not have a barbecue without toilets. So we now have a park with a barbecue shelter and no barbecue or toilets. Toilets are needed to complete the park, and they are needed in the area. While the park was being built, the contractor was asked several times by people off the street if they could use their portaloos. I have spoken to business in the area who all said they have been asked by people off the street if they could use their toilets. If you're in line for footy or a concert and you take short, there is nowhere to go. These toilets are needed to complete the park, are needed in this area. So that being said, we cannot progress discussion with other levels of government for funding until we have your support. We need in-principle consent to lobby for funding that is needed for this beautiful project. Year 24 to 25, 188 have been killed at work. That is 3 a week or more. Week after week after week. And we need to remember and respect them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hudson. Thanks very much.
And if you want at any time,
yes.
Oh, sorry, there's a new installation going in soon.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful pair of brass work boots. There is another one with plaque. And they were sponsored and donated by Launceston to the tune of $7,000. All right.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. So we move to the recommendation now that Council acknowledges the advocacy and persistence of Mr. Guy Hudson in realising the Workers' Commemorative Park as a significant space dedicated to Tasmanians who have lost their lives at work, and provides in-principle support for land to be made available for the purposes of installing a public toilet and barbecue facility within the park precinct. Moved by Councillor Gibson, seconded by Councillor Palmer. Councillor Gibson.
Thanks so much. I think Guy has said it best himself. His advocacy and his persistence, together with that of his wife Karen, speaks to the personal loss that they've experienced, but how they've turned that into something that will enable, and does now enable, the creation of a tribute to lives lost, yes, but also, as I mentioned in my background there, a powerful and enduring reminder of workplace safety, both physical and mental. And the way that Guy and Karen have been able to convince organisations and other levels of government to commit funding to this project speaks for itself, and you see those included in the background from the officers. This is not just a union project. You know, this is a project that's grown out of community, that's been supported by different colours of government. It's been supported actively by the City of Launceston in terms of our project management and completion of the project to date. You will note in the comments, both mine and indeed those of the officers, that there are some commitments that are still to be finalised, but they are active and nearing completion, and we recognise that. And so what this motion seeks to do is, in the absence of officers being able to provide landowner consent or officers being able to provide in principle support for the land being made available for the purposes that the motion calls for, this motion simply sees councillors determine, is this something that we will allow and allow for or not. And I think it, as I said in, first of all, point 1 of my motion, but also in the comments, there have been significant changes across the organisation, and in some respects this project has flipped and flopped from different people in different departments, different leaders over its journey. And I apologise to Guy for the lack of respect that may have seemed to bring to the project and to the lives that have been lost. That is certainly, from my perspective, not the case, and I feel very sure it's not the case for the organisation. All of that being said, this enables us, it enables Guy, it enables the community to facilitate a process or not to provide for space for the installation of a toilet and a barbecue facility. We note that there have been significant changes with regard to the stadium, the ownership model, and what is required in that space. We also note the comments made by the officers with regard to the ongoing recurrent costs. But when you consider what the space is, when you consider the passion and the advocacy, this process at least allows us to respect that and to determine once and for all where this project goes, and allows for Mr Hudson to continue the advocacy to get the funds or not. So I hope councillors will give it the conversation that it deserves after a very long time where it's been kicked down the road.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Gibson. Councillor Palmer is the seconder.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to start by saying thank you very much to Guy for being here today and sharing with us. Thank you very much. And for Councillor Gibson for bringing this motion forward. And I'd just like to say that I'm in full support of this today. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Palmer. Further contributions? Deputy Mayor.
Just four words. Let's finish the job.
Yep. Councillor Harris, anything further?
My only comment would be that just looking at the public toilet map there seems the nearest public toilets are in fact quite some distance. The one at Riverbend Park, the other on the northern side of Heritage Forest. So a public toilet in this area is actually both a practical as well as perhaps a necessary item for him to have his barbecue area. And I also think the barbecue area outside our football ground may well start some new traditions as well, and its use and the reason why it's there will give people reason to think about that if they are going to the football, as they do in Adelaide where they have their barbecues outside the ground at the Adelaide Oval. So I think it's a very worthy cause. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Harris. Further contributions? Councillor Walker.
Thank you. We might have to put in more than one barbecue if that's the case, through you, Chair. It's probably the first time I've seen a notice of motion with the word persistence in it, and I think that I just stand to acknowledge the persistence of Mr Hudson, and I think perhaps all of Launceston knows the story that's led to this point, and I always say around this table that every good idea needs a good champion for it to succeed, and I think this is an example of that case where that persistence of what is a good idea, and surely council gets approached on a regular basis for people wishing to memorialise or to acknowledge various events, people's lives around Launceston, and we can't always accommodate all of those. But the difference here is this is acknowledging a whole group of people, notwithstanding the Hudson family's own circumstances. This is far broader than that, and that is where this idea gains resonance with our community as a positive story, as the mover of the motion has said, in terms of awareness around workplace health safety, but also as a positive story now for the people of Launceston to have somewhere to relieve themselves. Thank you, Chair.
Great, thank you. Further contributions? Anything further to close?
I want to say that I, first of all, absolutely respect that body of work with regard to the scope, the scale of the toilets, etc., would be required, and my expectation is that as we continue the project, that we would be able to complete that work just as we did with regard to the installation of the garden and the design of it. I also want to say that it's not my usual approach to just kind of bring upon the organisation additional things without really considering the strategic and ongoing intent. But I do think that this is a project that needs to be completed, we need to get on with. And I do think that it's going to be an expensive project. A good friend of mine at West Hamer was determining and showing me a recently completed project, which was a much smaller toilet with quite a hefty price tag. I'm sure this project is going to be significant, but what I can guarantee is that with the persistence of Mr Hudson, that those funds will be found in the project, with Council's overview of the process will be completed to a very high standard, which will complement the precinct brilliantly and ensure that the project is completed. In conclusion, want to acknowledge that the 28th of April this year is when the Memorial Day will be held again, and it would be wonderful to be able to acknowledge that this project is on track to be completed in its entirety at that particular day. There are works going on at the stadium, and it feels like an opportune time to get this project completed while some of those are occurring in step with Stadiums Tasmania, which I'm sure would welcome some public toilets, as has been practically pointed out by Councillor Walker and others. So again, in conclusion, I want to reiterate that this has been a long-winded project. I want to thank Guy and acknowledge the work that's been undertaken and that of our officers, many of whom have just inherited it by nature of it passing from one department to another. That's no reflection on anyone. It's an opportunity for us to get the project completed, and I hope councillors will support it around the table. Great.
Thank you, Councillor Gibson. Putting it to the vote. All those in favour? That is all councillors present. The motion is carried. Thank you, Mr Hudson. Okay, moving through the agenda, we have got no committee reports, connections and livability or QV-MAG reports identified as a part of this agenda. So we go to 19 now, which is 19.1, the Launceston bus interchange. Before we do get to the recommendation, we will open the floor to public speakers, in which I have a couple identified. There may be more, and that's okay. I've got Mr Barr as the first speaker, please.
Good afternoon, and thanks for the opportunity to speak here today. My name's Alan Barr. I'm a director and part owner of 76 to 86 St John Street, which, as I hope you all are aware, is exactly outside the existing St John Street bus exchange. We purchased these buildings some 10 years ago with, I guess, at that stage, a mixed tenancy, both retail businesses and a high proportion of vacancies. Our vision was to and has been executed on, is to transform that precinct into a dining precinct and create a vibrant experience and connect with the proposed development of the Quadrant Mall and St John Street and the relocation of the bus stops. We spent several $1 million in upgrading those buildings to attract quality tenants, such as Tatler's Lane, Centuro, Sun and Moon, Frida's Sip and Paint, and Dill Pickle, which you would all be aware of as prominent businesses within the CBD hub. Our tenants have also heavily invested in their existing fit-outs and employ a significant number of people within those businesses and have added to the employment within the CBD since our development of that site. The failure, though, of the Launceston City Council to relocate the bus stops from outside of our development has led to a deterioration of the streetscape and also led to a heightened level of antisocial behaviour. It's unfortunate that our private investment has not been backed by plans laid by council over a decade ago. I guess the antisocial behaviour is linked, but not solely linked, to the bus stops, but it does give a congregation point and a point in which a lot of damage has been done in recent times. We've had a lot of malicious damage to our site, fires started in toilets, people jumping into our roof space, damage, doors kicked in, abuse, and several other inappropriate actions for our tenants, who live in fear some days of what consequences they may encounter. Moving forward though, the current council executives and officers have been a breath of fresh air, I must say. They've been approachable, consultative and collaborative in their approach to us as landowners and taken serious steps, and today I hope is one that will be validated in regards to planning a future for the bus interchange and allow the CBD to thrive in conditions which are more favourable for it to do so.
Great.
I believe the decision and the recommendation put forward rather by the council officers is appropriate. Temptation in these circumstances will often lead to manipulation of that recommendation or additional things to be added. I would note that there's been a lot of consultation and a lot of research done, and to further prolong any imminent development by complicating what is a pretty straightforward two-prong approach, I don't think is going to add any value. So I'd encourage councillors to take the advice of their executive team and endorse the recommendation in front of them. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Barr. Now, I've got a further noted speaker, Mr. Smith.
Is there another speaker as well?
I don't have any other noted speakers, but if there was anybody that hasn't written their name down there. I don't believe anybody else is moving at this particular moment, Mr. Smith.
Mr. Mayor, Robin Smith, I work in the mall at Coffee Republic. This City Hearts place plan bus interchange is probably the single most difficult decision the City Hearts team is going to have to make. Correct me if I'm wrong. Tell me if I'm wrong. There are two options proposed here. One is to leave it where it is, and one is to move it up to St Andrew's Church. No decision is made which to go for, whether to leave it or move it today. It's just to look at it. Do I have that right? Would that be a question you could answer that I speak on?
This is just for speaking, but I do note that that is a question that will and can be asked by councillors.
I'll work on the premise that there are two options. One is to leave it where it is, one is to move it. The document that accompanies this talks of a plan to relocate the buses or leave them where they are. It doesn't mention another document that was called the Launceston Central Bus Interchange Options Technical Feasibility, which looked at many other options, 12 in fact, to move around the city. I'd have to say where the bus is, I think it would not be a surprise to say that there aren't a lot of businesses that wanted to stay where it is. And I think you've burnt up a lot of goodwill by having it there for so long. It's unfortunate the way it's gone, but it's, partially metro, partially police, partially council, partially bad luck. But to move it to where it is, it just doesn't seem to fit. And in that technical feasibility, it says you're not going to be able to move B1 to there, which is option 2. It just doesn't fit. Even with the standard bus of 12 metres, you can't get what Department of State Growth want. That's very unfortunate, and that's working on the premise of 2, not 3, standard 12.5 metre buses. That's not the longer buses, and that's certainly not ever introducing articulated buses. The other thing that report I mentioned spoke about is the church aren't happy about it, the offices opposite aren't happy about it, and we've got a binary situation where there's ever move it or keep it where it is. Unfortunately, the office is right, and I'll finish off if I may, unfortunately, saying that there is a risk of another, just let me get the word, risk of renewed calls to revisit alternatives. And I think on reflection, there might be another alternative that's required, because I can't see either of these options working. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Smith. Were there any other speakers to the item? Okay. There not being any further speakers, just to preface some of the information that we've had, I'm just going to go executive leader for councillors and community benefit around the further consultation processes that Mr. Barr has pointed out and some of the actions that are in train at the moment before we get to Councillor Walker, who also has some further thoughts around an amendment to the motion. So, executive leader.
Thank you, Mayor. Further to a workshop we had with councillors, I think it was a few weeks ago now, we did push out this coming to a council meeting to give us an opportunity to have one-on-one engagement with those traders, businesses and property owners in and around the core areas that are impacted by either option 1 or 2. Those traders and businesses received a letter, I think it was week before last, off the top of my head, an offer of a one-on-one meeting. We had a handful of businesses that took up that opportunity, and I personally attended them to discuss the challenges that they have. I'd say a couple of themes emerged from those discussions, and I'd say number 1 was security and safety. People are currently not feeling safe. They find it difficult to create a safe work environment for their staff, and they are concerned that this project will not deliver a result for 3 years. So if we move forward with the approval of producing concepts today, the time frame will be, and I explained this to all the traders, that we'd come back later this year ideally, bearing in mind that we have a council election in that process, to say here are concepts for 2 or however many sites you approve. Then we would look to do detailed design in 2027, and we wouldn't be turning a sod or constructing anything until sometime in 2028. That's a very high level time frame. The strong feedback from the people that I met with was, that's too long. What will you do for my business in the interim? How will you help me sustain my investment in this town and operate in the meantime? So off the back of that conversation, I've asked officers to explore a couple of interim measures as a show of good faith. What was clear from those meetings is that there's very low trust in council, that people are feeling that nothing will ever happen. And so to show that good faith, there's 2 things I have officers exploring, one of which is the cost around security at those bus stops between certain hours of the day. For whatever reason, it doesn't appear that there is sufficient police presence in and around the bus stops to deter poor behaviour. That's not every bus passenger, but the traders felt that could be a useful interim measure to make it more workable for the next 3 years while we look at a permanent solution. And the other suggestion we had, which is much more complex, is the idea that we could move the, I think it's the B1 bus stops to Patterson Street temporarily. You may recall DSG had container bus stops down near the Harvey Norman for a period of time until they built their intercity bus waiting space. I'm trying to think of a name for it. Waiting area?
Transit centre.
Thank you, transit centre. So those are two, things that are a bit out of the box, certainly not what I went into those meetings expecting to walk away with, but are tangible shows of good faith that council could consider as an interim measure to support those impacted by the behaviour of a very small number of people in and around those bus stops over the next 3 years until we construct a new bus interchange.
Awesome. Thank you, Executive Leader. Now, noting some of those comments and the previous correspondence that's been delivered to councillors from Councillor Walker, I'm going to allow Councillor Walker to bring forward some further thoughts and an amended motion for the original debate.
Thank you, Chair, and I do stand to move an amended motion to the motion that was published in the agenda. I have actually, through you, Chair, spoken with Mr Barr yesterday about that, and I can understand concerns around any delay to the process. And what I intend to move today is certainly not designed to delay in any shape or form what is currently going on. And I appreciate the comments through you, Chair, of the positive interactions that Mr Barr has had with our council staff. What I propose, and it may well be on the screen, it is indeed, is to add a further option to that which is published in the agenda. And before I speak too much to that, I should probably seek a seconder.
Yes.
So I'll rely on the Chair's instructions there. But just to simply summarise, it would be to look at a further option, which is a relocation of bus stops based around Civic Square as a transport hub, a future-driven transport open hub, and would incorporate part of the option 6, which is in the papers today. It further addresses councils asking council to endorse the immediate provision of a security presence at the existing bus stops. I'll leave it at that for now and seek a seconder.
Great. Just before we do get to that seconding, I'm just going to go to Executive Leader and the CEO for if there's anything required through governance or what impacts this potentially might have for clarity around, because I appreciate Councillor Walker providing this just before we came in this morning, which is good, but just what implications it might have just for some further advice from the Executive Leader.
Certainly. As I'm sure all councillors are aware, the state government's going through machinery government changes. There's an element of uncertainty around who will be dealing with its state growth or building Tasmania moving forward. This option is not one that was considered through the previous bodies of work that were done, so we don't have an existing application of a multi-criteria analysis to this particular option. That will require us, I believe, to go away and investigate this with stakeholders, as well as have a pit and sherry or similar, undertake further technical work to determine whether this is possible and or suitable. I believe that process could add up to 12 months to this before we then seek to do concepts for options 1 and 2 as per the paper.
Excellent. Thank you. Anything further? Great. Okay, so moved by Councillor Walker. Looking for the seconder. Councillor Harris has seconded. Got a question? Well, there might be a few questions, so I'll take questions before we get to conversation. Councillor Gibson.
Thanks so much. My question concerns point 5, endorses the immediate provision by council of a security presence at existing bus stops in St John Street during peak times in consultation and to seek state government support of this service. So the way it's worded to me sounds like regardless of the cost and regardless of who's going to pay, we're still going to endorse the immediate provision of the service. That feels to me a little open-ended without much financial responsibility or an understanding of where that could land. If the project gets kicked down the road as long as it's been on the books, notwithstanding the comments that have been made with regard to us potentially doing that, that could become quite quickly out of control, notwithstanding council could at any time revoke that decision. I'm just not sure I feel overly comfortable with that as worded. In principle, I support it, and I would welcome, as we've done in the past, that provision of service, but I do think there would need to be a body of work done around what it looks like what it's going to cost us, and as a result, what we're not going to be able to spend the money on in terms of other projects.
Thanks, Councillor Gibson.
Is that the case?
Question.
So, Executive Leader, yes, around potential costings, timeframes, working, as it's stated, looking for contributions from other governments.
This was authored by Councillor Walker, so I can speak to options around costing of security. I have asked for a quote to Councillor Gibson's point. We do have on contract some security during winter months in Civic Square for our own staff, so we're looking at the cost of that. Obviously, we have a threshold in the regulations around anything over 250 has to go to open tender. So I think perhaps what might be more prudent, to your points, and a mere suggestion, would be a trial for a period over the winter, and then we can evaluate whether it has a positive, negative, no impact on safety and security around those spaces. To the point around seeking state government support, my view would that would be a political matter, not operational.
Anything further to the question, Councillor Gibson? Question, Councillor Britton.
Thanks very much. Just ultimately, who makes the call as to where we can put the bus stops or not?
Okay. Executive Leader, as to where the bus stops go.
There's a number of stakeholders. So essentially, council owns the bus infrastructure. The stops are our responsibility. We have the road. We need to reconstruct St John Street. And correct me if I'm wrong, Team Leader Engineering, Metro drive the buses. Department of State Growth is responsible for timetabling and paying Metro to do that job. So that's the three major stakeholders involved. Part of what's appealing about the options on the table is that they have DSG endorsement at this point in time. The option that's been included in this recommendation by Councillor Walker, it would be my view that it's unlikely to be supported by Department of State Growth. They prefer buses on one street rather than having a bus stop on one street and another on the other street, which I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Councillor Walker, is the intention around Civic Square, to separate passengers.
So maybe just to follow up, so ultimately, if DSG don't want the bus stops there, they get the final say?
They certainly have a loud voice, and they are the ones that control where the buses go and when. That could become a political matter, Councillor Britton, but at this point in time we have state government support for 1 and 2. When I say state government, I mean the agency officer level support. As at this point in time, I have no confirmed position of Department of State Growth on the option being put forward by Councillor Walker, because it's a new option. We'd need to do that work as part of that 6 to 12 month process to ascertain whether Department of State Growth could or would support that.
And somewhere buried under mountains of paperwork, are there other options around the city that would already be endorsed by DSG, or is it only these 2 or 3 positions?
Thank you, Team Leader Engineering. Saving me going through my paperwork, it's only these 2.
And I think it's important to clarify in that question as well. Again, correct me if I'm wrong, but a question from the public around, there were multiple sites that have been identified as a part of City Hut reports and so forth. Would it be accurate to say that in that question there that they have been facilitated through a process and these are the 2 that have come out as endorsed by the Department of State Growth as an example?
Yes, there are.
Then the others were sort of ideas that have been now filtered down to 2 options.
Correct.
Yeah. Further questions before we get to the speakers? Councillor Walker.
State Growth might have a loud voice in this particular instance, but I'll tell you who should have a loud voice, and that's the City of Launceston. We should be screaming from the rooftops that we want solutions that are going to suit not just our traders in the city, not just our pedestrians and our shoppers in our city, but also the current passengers who use the bus service, and most importantly, the future users of alternative transport means to get around our fine city. We need to be bold and clear about the vision we have for the future of Launceston. And I don't believe that moving a bus stop 30 metres or so is going to make a great difference to that. Now, I understand that through the many iterations, and they're listed in the agenda today, going back 15 years, it is one of those issues that comes back every 6 months to council. How are we going to solve this? And it should be apparent that that process, whilst our officers most recently have endeavoured to summarise and to truncate and to find solutions in that, it is not offering a broad new vision for what transport can be, public transport, alternative transport can be in Launceston. So what I've sought to do is use Civic Square as the basis of a transport hub to remove the buses from the CBD. Now, I note that option 6, which is in today's agenda, partially does that anyway. It moves one of the northern bus stops to just outside Town Hall here, outside the church. So that's half of what I'm suggesting, I suppose. But what I'm suggesting is so much more than that. It is to integrate cycling and alternative sustainable transport systems like scooters and whatever else might come our way, and allow the space where people can have bicycle racks, where they could have change facilities, where they might ride a bike from Newstead to the city and get changed, or they might catch a bus out to Newnan. That can't happen in the close confines of the inner CBD. Now, I can't argue all the ins and outs of this case because I'm not sure myself that this would definitely work. We have a long way to go, I accept that, and as I said to begin with, I would like this to be worked on concurrently to what is proposed in the agenda, and I don't see a problem with that. But I do fully endorse, and I understand the concerns, but I do fully endorse in the interim that council does commit to providing that security service during those peak hours at those stops. Nobody should have their business threatened by consistent poor behaviour. No person who visits our city should feel threatened and intimidated by just walking past a bus stop. So we provide security at other locations. I go to the Gorge most afternoons. We have a security officer there. No one complains about that. No one complains about the cost. That's a regular practice that council perform, and this would be no different. It's really just looking at those peak trouble times and making sure that if the state government aren't prepared to put on more police to monitor the situation, if Metro Tasmania aren't prepared to acknowledge that they are contributing to that problem, then it is council's job to step forward. When no one else will do anything, that is your time to step forward and say, well, I'll do something myself. I will contribute to solving this problem because I love this city and I want it to function well and I want it to thrive. And at the moment, we're putting a stranglehold on our CBD when we allow this type of behaviour and this type of congregation to continue unchecked. I know it's a double-pronged amendment to the motion, and I can appreciate consternation from my fellow councillors that they might feel as though, well, this is a little bit too much too quickly. But I do implore you to be bold, to have some confidence that the amendments that I'm suggesting are not going to impede the process that has already begun. And indeed, if it was successful, it would dovetail nicely into an option that already exists within the current agenda. I'd love to talk more about Cameron Street being a future access for alternative transport, but my time is finished, and I think that is up to your imagination to see the potential in what we could create here, right outside Town Hall. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Walker. Now, Councillor Harris is the seconder, and then I've got Councillor Gibson.
Thank you, Mayor. And I don't often, Councillor Walker and I don't always see eye to eye, so it's an interesting pleasure to support him in this amendment today. I often say if you take out what you know today, and that is the buses in St John Street, and we introduced a new thing called public transport, would you put the buses in St John Street today if there were no buses there? The answers are probably not. You'd probably put them where you had access to other facilities, such as public toilets, which conveniently happen to be on one end of Civic Square. And similarly, as Councillor Walker talked about, you could make the Civic Square a public transport interchange on both ends of it. It is simply a matter, a good bus interchange does not go, and if you ask any bus operator, and I'm not sure that we have, but I have, if you have a bus operation, you don't want to wind your bus right into the centre of the CBD to then have to get back out again. You want to kiss the side of the CBD, drop your passengers off and keep going. That is efficient public transport. And that is what we should be looking at for the next 20 years. Not a decision that unfortunately has been talked about for so long that I can remember it in 2013 when I was first in Andrew Nicklich's office at the other end of St John Street. The bus stops were a problem then. So this has been ongoing a long time. So I do think that Councillor Walker's amendment to look at, and I don't believe that the Civic Square has been seriously looked at in the other 12 options. Other options were examined, but this one actually makes more sense to me than some of the others. Some of the others I could support, but it doesn't seem like we're making any qualitative difference. We are simply modifying a little bit of what we're doing. We're improving it by 5 or 10%. We shouldn't be doing that. We should be thinking, if we want this to be, what do we want the centre of our CBD to look like? And it's probably not running the buses right down our main St John Street. And I guess the analogy is, in Melbourne, I'm not sure they would like to have the Birch Street Mall with the trams running down the middle of it if they introduced a new thing called trams today. So I'm happy that we should be looking at this as a new option. We have heard from our staff, we won't be doing anything till 2028. It's only 2026. DSG will be in a state of somewhat flux for the next 6 months or so while they figure out how they become part of building Tasmania, and that gives us time to have the necessary work and reports done on this yet untested option. And as Councillor Walker has said, bring all 3 options back to us for us to continue. As far as the security goes, I am aware that there does need to be security there. It probably only has to be in the after-school time. I don't believe there's much of an issue in the morning time change or when buses are being interchanged there, but I do believe the problem tends to happen between 3:30 and maybe 5:30. So 2 hours a day might be all we're looking at, but that's just my my intuition and also based on feedback from other traders in St John Street. So very happy for us to consider Councillor Walker's amendments, and I do believe this is a once-in-an-opportunity lifetime change to get it right, rather than simply try to modify what we've already inherited. And that probably doesn't mean putting buses up and down St John Street between Patterson and York Street. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Harris. I've got Councillor Gibson.
Thanks so much. I rise to say Councillor Walker has certainly won me over with regard to the security. I think his comments were appropriate, and I think what it will do is add some surety for those business owners. It will also help dispel, thank you, the idea that a conglomerate of young people who catch a bus are necessarily the ones who are making the trouble. And it will assist, I think, in realising that often the people that I see in that street who are the source of some of those issues are probably not even bus travellers themselves. But I certainly understand from the years of ongoing relationships that I've had with people in that street, and that being the street that I live in, that there are real issues there. So that is absolutely the case. I want to make it clear, for me, thinking big, in the absence of an off-street bus interchange proper that we campaigned and worked so hard for in Patterson Street, let's explore C. I'm not sure eventually that it will come out based on any rational criteria. and I certainly understand it will take a bit of time. I do think that work can be undertaken at the same time, because even though I'll be noting it today, I want to categorically make my point very clear, as I did many years ago. I will not be able to support the retention of the bus stop locations a couple of metres down the road. I'll be able to support B when it comes back with a fully notated analysis, but option one, you know, the council at the time, 2 weeks after they made the original decision to reinstate the bus stops in the same place, backed away. And they backed away for very good reason, because the community and the businesses at the time could not possibly understand how you would spend that many millions of dollars to simply recreate the pavement. What is required here, and what we are hearing from the officers, is that a multi-pronged approach is needed. Gone are the days where 3 bus stops are required. All you need to do is to watch the footage that Anthony Learn, Mr Barr and others have got that show that the number of buses that are there and the waiting times that they are there require a little tweak, and for the majority of services, 2 bus stops is enough. Councillor Walker's comments with regard to who holds the rein on this project are absolutely important and acknowledged. And as our previous advocacy and work with Metro and State Growth will tell you, that the bus timetables appear to be so set in concrete that no one can change them. I mean, it beggars belief. I don't know how school holidays work, because I'm surprised the buses don't continue to run, because the timetabling is so difficult. I think what we have now is an opportunity to reframe the project. I think what we do is in noting option 1 and option 6, we condense what has been a very expansive body of work that for so long has kind of tried to guide our discussion. I understand that for the officers, a further option is going to be frustrating, but probably it's our job to be big sky thinkers, and in the absence of a Patterson Street off-street option, we should probably look at this option. Will it delay it? Yes. Is it council's job to ask that officers then reallocate the resources to be able to achieve it so that the delay isn't so great? Yes, that's our job, working in partnership with the CEO. Does that mean that some of our notices of motion or some of our pet projects might have to fall off the line in terms of our strategic plan? Maybe. And that should come back as part of the response as well, ahead of time if needed. What I will say is that from my point of view, there has been so many reports, there have been so many designs, there has been so many divisions of council working on this for so long. This feels like the first time in a significant number of years where the project is being brought back to the table, and it feels like the staff are absolutely in control of getting the work done, which is a great outcome for our city. I'll support the amendment, but I'll make it categorically clear that in supporting and noting option 1, it in no way shows my support for that option. I'm leaning towards option 6, and who knows what happens with the blue sky thinking. I'll support the amendment, but I categorically reiterate my rejection to option 1, just as I did a number of years ago.
Thanks, Councillor Gibson. Councillor McMahon.
Thank you. I guess I'm the person in the room that's going to offer a very different perspective, because I actually have a business in the CBD and I speak with businesses on irregular occasions. Review in 2005, I think it was mentioned that the first was 2013. If you actually go back and look at it, it was about 2005. That is 20 years ago. We've seen a lot of businesses come and go in the city in that time, and a lot of them have left that spot because of the antisocial behaviour. Launceston Safer Community Report 2009, recommendations: organise surveillance, create bag zones, undertake further consultations, conduct surveys, change timetables. 2009. 2011, Launceston City Council Antisocial Behaviour Report. Reported underutilisation in Civic Square, opportunity to create a space that is attractive to youth. We've actually redeveloped the Civic Square in that time, and nothing from that report was utilised. Not even considered. Pitt and Sherry Report 2014, City Prom Survey 2014. Here we are, 2025, and we're sitting here debating we're going to come up with another option, we're going to wait another 6 months. We've had so many iterations, we've looked at it so many times, and we've commented that the staff are really keen to get something happening, but we're going to say, hang on a minute, let's just put a pause on that, let's go back, let's look at something else, look at another option. The issues and the feedback, that's not changed in 20 years. Antisocial behaviour, the noise of the buses, the fumes from the buses, it's in every single report. There was reports done that show percentages for the spaces around the city that would work best, asking retailers, asking people who catch the bus, speaking to multiple people around the city. These two options were the ones that came up trumps. But we want to look at another option that was probably not considered in the first one. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't, we don't know. There were so many options. I just feel like we're in Groundhog Day. I say that a lot in this chamber, actually. I think it's time that we actually make a decision, because if we take another 6 months, or it could turn out to be another 12 months before we get another report, and we pay for another report, continually paying for reports that we don't actually even look at the information that's in the reports. So for me, I'm not going to support this motion today. I feel like speaking to the security, I feel like that probably should have come to the chamber as a motion separately, and I would definitely support that. So for me, I feel like we've done enough running around. We've now got to a point where we can actually do something. For these people who've got businesses and properties in the city who've been banging their head against the wall for 20 years, let's actually do something and show them that we are a council that cares about the people and cares about the businesses who pay rates and extra rates for commercial properties, people who are paying rent every week. Let's actually show them that we are supporting them, and let's get on with the job. Thank you.
Councillor McMahon, if you don't mind, would you say that you're foreshadowing that if this fails, we go back to the original as published motion, noting also the council officers around the work that's already ongoing for instating security? Okay, thank you. I've got the Deputy Mayor next.
Thanks, and thank you for that clarity, Councillor McMahon. That was great. I feel like a failure as I stand up here, because I was, I think, a much younger me on the front of the Examiner in 2014 asking for the bus stops to be moved. And here we are 11 years later and still nothing much has happened. Now, appreciating in the interim the process with regard to the Birchwood car park, which I thought was a really positive outcome, which got the buses off the streets altogether. It was a really good outcome, and that's probably truncated where we've got to today. We did multiple reports and locations through Pitt and Sherry, whenever it was, a few years ago, to look at the options around the city. The one that Councillor Walker's put together wasn't even considered in that particular situation, so I'm sitting there and thinking, well, these are the engineers that have looked around the options that we've got around the city, and I would go with it, except for the fact that 12 months further investigation isn't a place where I can go. We need to get on and move with it. I've spoken to Alan and his membership and the ownership, and they've invested $7.7 million into an area which was decrepit to try and get going forward. They were done on the basis that they thought we were moving the buses way back when. So there are a number of significant issues associated with prolonging their agony any further than there are. I think the security aspect, I'm happy for that to live on the basis of where the officers have said we're going to go, rather than putting in a motion. I think that's something that I think is going to happen altogether. But there are building owners in there. I've spoken to many of them, and a number of them are here today, and I know the pain they go through, the frustration they go through with the damage to their properties, the blocking of the toilets, all of those sorts of things. And I don't really want to delay this a moment longer than we have to. Our officers have come back, and I was really heartened to see the business owners come back and saying the engagement has been great in this area. So let's take that great momentum that has occurred and let's roll forward with it, and let's not delay it any longer. So my view would be I would be happy with the foreshadowed motion that we had previously.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Any further contribution? A question, Councillor Britton?
Thank you. What is the reasoning behind the 12 months that it will take?
Yeah, great. Thank you for the question. Executive Leader?
Team Leader Engineering might want to supplement my answer, so I'll foreshadow that. But essentially, we need to go and put this through the same multi-criteria analysis we did for all the options from the 2014 report. That also involves engaging all the stakeholders in that report, so we're comparing it apples and apples. We're not going through a process of assessing it in a different way. I think the other part of that is I wouldn't want to pay an architectural consultant to do concepts only to have to then add another concept later in terms of procurement. I think it would be smoother to go out and say, here's 3 locations or here's 2, please develop concepts, rather than have a separated procurement process. So I take the notes around believing it can be done concurrently, but I think the cleanest way to do it would be to undertake the analysis of the alternate and then brief an architect on 2 or 3 sites at once, so we can produce concepts and then be considered by council all together.
Yeah, go for it.
We also have to take into account, yes, there's business owners here, yes, there's real concern that's valid. There is also business owners here as well that haven't been engaged upon. So we could well be back in exactly the same situation in 12 months' time with these business owners in exactly the same position today as well. So no matter where the bus interchange goes, there will still be new stakeholders that will come to the table and run through this process again as well that we do need to consider.
Thank you. Further questions, contributions? Further question, Councillor Priest.
Thank you, Mayor. Just in relation to security at the bus stop, the security, what powers do they have? They have no powers to detain. They're just bear witness and call the police. That's a question. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
We need to explore that further. I think the model around private security, they wouldn't have police powers, is my understanding. However, there are the councils around the country that employ something called community safety officers. Mm-hmm. They sometimes have powers, but they only have any powers that we give them under the relevant act. So I believe they would be more of a visual deterrent than anything else, and I certainly don't expect they'd be engaging. Not dissimilar, you might be familiar, Councillor Priest, says private security in the local the Launceston General Hospital emergency waiting area.
Great question. Councillor Britton, a further question?
I'm going to try and make this not as complicated, but we could get there. I'm really conflicted. I came to the meeting thinking I was going to be in favour of this amendment, and after hearing what we've heard and seeing how long it's taken to get to this point, and being a business owner myself, I understand 12 months is a very long time. And not only that, we've got to be very careful sitting here at the table and almost making that decision on behalf of other people. Now, with all that said, and I know we shouldn't waste money, but I don't understand why we can't okay today the architectural designs to be done on all 3 in conjunction with the work to look into Civic Square, into the Civic Square site. I don't really understand why there has to be, we have to wait again. And if there's a way to change that, I'd like to foreshadow a motion that we spend the money to do all 3 in conjunction with speaking to the DSG. And if we get to the end of 12 months and we can't use those bus stops, so be it. But for the sake of the next 100 years of Launceston and making sure we get this right, I would see that as okay, personally.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Britton. So some clarity around, I'll sort of take that as a question. The thoughts of endorsing today with 3 options, but also pushing to architectural, understanding that we would have done no community consultation, we would have done no reporting with state growth. They might not support it, but I'm feeling that Councillor Britton's saying, who cares, spend the money to try and get that train to save the time.
That's right. Do all of it. And if we get to the end of it and DSG and everyone says that can't work, put it in the bin, no worries. But after 20 years, if we're all a bit conflicted, that could well be the best option. And if it isn't, whatever, but let's not hold it up for anyone else in town anymore. And let's not throw it in the bin just because we can't sort of get it done quick enough. And not us, I understand the parameters around it, but I would be happy to support doing all three, and I'll happily wear the public burning if it is wasted money. Thanks.
I'll get the team leader engineering to provide some background, but I think we need to be careful that we don't oversimplify how architectural concepts get done. It's not just a matter of getting out a packet of crayons and drawing some options that look cool. There's a lot of behind the scenes technical work that supports making sure those concepts are actually feasible, and that's where I'll get you to jump in, please.
Yes, so that's correct. We have quite a detailed knowledge and understanding of the bus routes as they stand now. We've worked with the DSG in relation to that. We also understand their routes, what those swept paths are around every single intersection on their routes. That hasn't been considered in any way for Charles Street either. So there is a consideration there that we actually need to go back to first principles from a traffic engineering perspective and understand what does that route look like, because the flow on effects could be 2, 3, 4, 5 blocks out as well. So we can't jump straight into architectural designs now because we need to understand how to fix the entire network as well. So there is 2, 3, 4 additional follow-on implications to that. We can't just amend our architectural scopes now because we actually might fall over when we go, okay, that looks great, but it actually only works for 1 or 2 block radius, and then we're in the same situation where traffic flow falls over 2 blocks away as well. There's a bigger operational picture there we do need to consider as well.
So would you say it's fair for some clarification, Councillor Britton's question, that amount of work even to get to an architectural stage would still, it's not the financial implications, but it's the time. It would still require time. It couldn't, or it wouldn't be feasible to do it still saying, all right, architects, go and propose these spots, we want to do it here. The architects or the visual designers would come back and say, we
don't have enough detail to give it to a visual designer now, but we would also have to look at what prioritisation looks like internally for our work and our offices, because we'll be essentially starting from first principles for this choice. So we have to undertake all that legwork first before we can then go to the architects. At this point in time, we're preparing the briefs for the architects for options that are on the table today, but we have to step back from that, reprioritise our internal resources, our operational resources and our engineers to refocus on that, equip again and then step forward again. That's where the 12 months comes from.
Thank you. Councillor Britton?
Sure. Well, okay, and I appreciate all that, so thank you very much. Can we not then, can we change this so that we still do the architectural designs of where we were initially, and do that and still investigate Civic Square? I don't understand how those two things can't run parallel.
We could do them at the same time, yes, but what we'd end up with is 2 concept designs for 2 locations that are endorsed, and probably some sort of paper that outlines the constraints and opportunities associated with the third option and no visuals. So at that point you might say on paper, without any visuals, option 3 sounds, you know, workable. Can you go to architectural concept? Well, then we'll do that work. That will take another few months, and then we'll keep those 2 architectural concepts on ice for options 1 and 2 until you get a concept, if you like, the sound of number 3. So you're adding time at some point. Yes, we can go on a journey to start that work for that site, but you'll still end up with 2 things that have different timing, and you'll either wait now or you'll wait later, because once you have concepts for 2 of them, people are visual creatures. The things we're talking about at the moment are hard to conceptualise without any imagery or renders, and then you'll have a paper option with no pictures and 2 options with pictures. So I imagine if option 3 sounds good on paper, we'll still end up waiting for concepts. And I can't speak to timeframes for that, unfortunately. Sorry, Councillor Britton.
Yeah. I guess I've never designed a bus stop, so I wouldn't have a clue. But you know, thinking back to where this essentially was born, we were presented with the first 2 options, and I think the idea was essentially we've got no idea how this is going to look, how it feels, where it sits, whatever. You know, can we get some designs done so we can at least visualise it?
For which option?
For options A and B. And the whole thing seems to be a lot, or that task seems to be so much bigger, I think, than anyone really envisaged, apparently. I would still change the motion to just say go ahead with all of it, and do it in conjunction, and do it in a way that if we as soon as we get the word, that number C is not applicable, we have everything there ready to go for option A or option A or B to make a decision at the time. And I don't, and I appreciate it, but I don't really understand how that can add so much time to it. Happy to be shot down, or if anyone else wants to speak, but yeah.
Great. Thanks, Councillor Britton. I've got a further question, Councillor Harris.
Thank you, and this debate has just raised a question in my mind about where are we at with the introduction of two-way streets for Patterson and Charles Street? Because obviously if we were to put buses coming up Charles Street as it currently sits to get to the end of Civic Square, whether there's a two-way street down Charles Street to then turn right into York could well change the route very significantly.
Okay, Councillor Harris, yep, we understand the question. Good question. Where are we sitting with, how does this potentially implicate any further city heart developments?
So two-way streets has been pushed out in the 4-year delivery plan because we need a resolution of where the bus is going, and I can't rebuild, the Royal Eye can't rebuild St John Street until we know where the buses are going. So we need to resolve the bus interchange location so we can rebuild, or reconstruct rather, St John Street between Cemetery and Elizabeth, and then only then will we attempt two-way streets.
Thank you. Great. Good question, Councillor Harris. Further contributions? Councillor Pentridge.
I'm somewhat tired of listening to all this. Thank God we're not making an omelette, because we'll be having baked chicken by the time we finish talking about it. Now, this has gone on and on. This is ridiculous. Right? One, we here, my dear colleagues, have listened to someone that's been actively involved in that area. Like, it wouldn't take, for God's sake, instead of everyone, prolonged illness results in death. Let's just get on and do it. I reckon Councillor Walker's idea here, did the rest of you do little drawings like I did? At least Councillor Walker, I did. I reckon let's just do it. Because listen, if all else fails, we can take it back again. St John Street's not going anywhere. We can do it in a fraction of the time and a fraction of the cost. Just talking about it is ridiculous.
Thanks, Councillor Pentridge. Further contributions? Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Mayor. I really thank Councillor Walker for putting this on the table today, and I do understand his intent. I really do respect him for that, and I've listened to everyone's contributions. And the way I see it, I would be a hypocrite if I didn't say, after listening to Councillor McMahon, she has had a business in our city, I want to say, correct me if I'm wrong, for close to 20 years. We've got the business community here speaking. Don't overcomplicate it. We are here representing on this day, on this agenda item, those businesses, those people that have and own and run businesses in our city. I've heard them loud and clear. Don't overcomplicate it. Stick with the original motion. That's what I'm hearing loud and clear. And that's what I'll be doing today. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Councillor Palmer. Are there any contributions before we close? Councillor Priest.
Just in regard to the security officer, can we investigate between security and a safety officer, given that one potentially could have more power than the other before it's implemented?
I'm happy to speak to you, Councillor Priest. I'm not familiar with what a safety officer... Are you referring to a community safety officer, which will have powers under the Act? Yeah, I can have a conversation with you.
Okay, and I would just also like to thank the business owners, the property owners coming to speak today. I think one of the important conversations that we haven't had around the table is actually the people that are actually catching the buses. And and their thoughts. I'm thinking with Councillor Walker's motion that, you know, people are coming into the city to use the library. It's closer to Centrelink, a shorter walk. It's an easier walk in the paving situation to the library if that's where people's idea of coming into the city is sitting. I'm happy to support Councillor Walker's motion today. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McMahon?
It actually does state in the reports that have been done, people who catch the buses were actually interviewed and are part of the reports that have been done, and they would actually prefer the buses to be closer in the CBD rather than further out from the CBD.
Great. Thank you. So I'll take that as a point of order, just clarifying the report. Any further contributions? Deputy Mayor, I just want to weigh in just for a second. I'm really pleased again to see that we're here, we're talking about something that's been talked about for a long time, a really long time, another issue, and I have written down here that it's another really proud moment for this council to be talking about an outcome, a potential outcome. I almost feel like I might have had to have changed those words as to how the discussion has gone to now potentially looking at other options again. But I'm still really proud of where we are. There will be an outcome from this. But I want to also make an important note with the CEO around caretaker mode will come in the next 6 months. There'll be a new council elect in the next year. As to what that looks like for this process, I'm not giving an opinion on that, but I think, CEO, it was worth noting that 6 months from now could look very different to a year from now also. And an exciting moment for us to be discussing this. But I want to be really clear also the point that as the leaders and the decision makers of the city, for me personally, the security is a great idea, and it's something that's actually been developed from conversations with the business community that's there. And what that looks like, Councillor Priest, very good point as to what powers they have. There are different community models through councils throughout the country that have ambassadors, they have traffic people that stand and help. We've seen different versions of that. So that can definitely be explored as well. But I think it's really important to note that we have the businesses that are here today. And I think the hardest part about this decision is thinking if we make this decision and it's the wrong decision, what that looks like, coming back and reflecting on that. But I think what I'm taking weight on is the correspondence that we asked for, that we've got Mr. Barr here, that we've spoken to Mr. Loon and we've talked to Arch. And if they are comfortable with moving the buses, what very well might be a small amount, but looking at that whole redevelopment of the street, it's not moving the buses on curbside, up on curbside. This is a purpose-built, what I'm envisioning that's being proposed, bus shelter, bus stop, off the street, out of the way. But I want to also just be really clear on our social leadership. This is civic leadership, talking about roads and construction, but the social leadership that I see here in us looking at other ways in which we can be involved, in which we can support the businesses around the social integration, the connection pieces. And whilst security is going to be the first step to that, and I understand and I respect that, I think there is that bigger piece around the same potential costings around looking at the BFT, the gym that's now empty because of this behaviour, in which we could step into spaces like this with the lounge, longer term housing, getting people connected, getting them in and really looking at positive ways of putting wraparound service, working with providers, and I'm just using that as the example there, but not just continuing to police our community, but to invite them in and to put those services and support around them. So I'd like to see some of that in the decision making as we continue to go forward with the decisions of council, and to reiterate that the businesses are here. The first things that Mr. Barr said was stop overcomplicating this. If the businesses are happy, if the consultation process has happened and that this process is endorsed today and it's got the backing, I think we're going to find ourselves being a part of the community, whatever element that we're in into the future, still talking about this. I'd be so disappointed. So that's just where it lays for me, and I'm going to let Councillor Walker as the original mover now close. And I just want to also state that there is the foreshadow that if this fails, it will go back to the 1-2 and we'll continue to move this in a more timely manner. So thanks, Councillor Walker.
Everyone wishes this to be resolved. Everyone wishes this to be resolved in a timely manner. Everyone wants a good outcome. I'll be really sad and disappointed for those traders if the bus stop moves 20 metres down the road and you're still complaining about the same thing in 2 years' time. I'm looking for a little bit of vision around the table today. I'm looking for people to raise their sights a little higher and to think about the future of public transport in Launceston. It's not going to be diesel buses, that's for sure. There are people in this room who use alternative transport already, battery-powered bicycles and scooters and the like. And these things need to be catered for. People, if they want to work in town and ride a bike, they need a place to get change. If they want to park their bike and chain it up and catch a bus, they need a place to do that. You won't provide that in St John Street. I don't know where you will provide it, but you won't provide it there. You might provide a little bit of amenity, but it's interesting through you, Chair, that one of the councillors mentioned the bus customers were surveyed. But of course they didn't survey the people who don't catch the bus, they just survey the ones that do now and say we want to go a bit closer to town so I don't have to walk very far. But there are a whole raft of people. We can't be all things to all people, but we can create a system that allows as much flexibility as possible so that people can pick and choose their way to get around without necessarily driving a car. We will always drive cars, well, some kind of personal transport, but that will evolve and shape as time goes. And we should, as a future-driven council, conceptualise how that can go. And most importantly, not delay this process. I hear that, this may take 12 months to do. Half of what I'm suggesting is already included in the options before us today. That's a bus stop outside this building in St John Street at approximately 37 St John Street. That would be half of the solution. So all I'm talking about, and it makes me wonder, how did we even build bus stops 100 years ago? I've got no idea how we managed to do it. How did we build an entire metropolitan tram system 130 years ago? I've got no idea how we managed to do it. All I'm asking for is another bus stop at the other end of Civic Square, in an area that there's more room, conceivably, than there is at this end. So a desktop study of that particular space. Charles Street, between Cemetery Street and the Cameron Street intersection, where there used to be, as people will remember, a fountain at the end of Civic Square. There's no fountain there anymore. There's an abundance of space there. Of course, it will mean changing routes. Of course, it will mean different timetables. This is where this council needs to take that challenge up to the state government. This is where we need to stand and say we want a better Launceston future for all people. Not just for the traders, but certainly for them. Not just for the people who catch buses now, but certainly for them. But not just for other people who want to rely on other forms of transport now and into the future, who cannot do that at the moment, who conceivably cannot do that. They can't use alternative transport and have a shower before they go to work. They can't tie up their bike anywhere around town and get on a bus. So these are the types of things I'm asking you to envisage. It's easy to come up with reasons not to do something, to say, well, this might take a little bit of time. I appreciate, through you, Chair, Councillor Britton's contribution. And as he said, why can't we do these in concert, side by side? I looked at the motion and I thought, that's what I'm suggesting. I left all the endorsements that are in there. Carry on with that work. Indeed, half of that work will solve the problem that I'm trying to solve. It's only one end of Civic Square when I'm asking us to do a little bit of additional work to see if maybe a bus stop would fit in there. And if it does, then perhaps we can incorporate that vision and encourage Launceston to embrace that vision for a future transport of Launceston. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks, Councillor Walker. So putting the stated motion, which is on the screen, to the vote. All those in favour? 1, 2, 3. Those against? So Councillor Palmer, Councillor McMahon, Councillor Britton, Deputy Mayor and Mayor against. The motion is carried. Okay, moving forward through the agenda, we have got the Albert Hall redevelopment update at 19.2. Thanks, guys. So we're just noting that the... Oh, thank you, Mr. Smith. Yeah. We might take a comfort break for a moment. We'll just take a comfort break for a moment. We'll reconvene at 3:10. I know, but I just lost half the councillors. Point 2. We've got the Albert Hall redevelopment update. I don't believe we've got any noted speakers, so we'll move through to the recommendation, that recommendation being to receive the update on the status of the Albert Hall, as well as an update on the status of the cafe. Somebody please to move. Councillor Harris for the move, seconded by Councillor Britton. Councillor Harris, anything further to the report?
I just have a couple of questions that hopefully the staff can answer in regard to what was planned to be completed by the end of February, whether that in fact has been done. I think the installation of the fire curtain, first of all.
Is that in the report?
It says it was meant to happen. Will install.
So the work has happened,
Good.
and I believe it's in.
Good.
There might be some minor tinkering left to do.
That's okay. The second one was regarding the kitchen fit-out, where some 50% of it's on site. As part of the kitchen fit-out, has there been any change to where the door from the exit to the kitchen directly opposite the toilets,
No.
Has that been included in the change?
That is only fit out of the catering kitchen.
Very good. And I think that is the only questions that I have. It's good to see that the Albert Hall is now being used. It's not good to see that we don't have a working cafe out of there or anything like that. And perhaps now, as we're in March, the opportunity for the current summer period has somewhat passed us by. However, it is good to see that we have been moving on, and I believe we have had some shows in the Albert Hall that have been relocated from the Princess Theatre that have been particularly well received by those who have been in the facility. Certainly that's the feedback that I've been getting. But this is just a report to receive where we're up to. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Harris. Councillor Britton? Further contributions? Councillor Walker.
Thank you, Chair. I stand to congratulate the City of Launceston on pursuing and completing these additional works, albeit at more expense to the council. This is just the nature of doing business. We always concern ourselves with the cost of these things. There are some things on that list that are still awaiting allocation. I will, note that the one thing that, if I can finish with a question, that I don't see listed there, and I'm not sure if it is a priority, but the loading bay door and access to it is something that I think attention has been drawn to that. Is that something that we will address in any iteration of these building works?
Thanks, Councillor Walker. Executive Leader.
Apologies, I'm not aware of any issues related to the loading zone, so I'd be happy to have an email from you.
Loading zone or loading dock, sorry.
Loading dock out the back. I'm happy to receive detail on that. I'm not sure where those were directed to.
Certainly I shall provide that.
Thank you.
Further contributions? Councillor Gibson.
Thanks so much for the report, really appreciate it. Also appreciate the model of additional work conducted there. It says a desktop research undertaking, which seemed appropriate in that instance. It didn't need to be a full consultant's report that extended too far, just a desktop research analysis which provided the answer to that particular quandary. I stand to say, though, I'm very disappointed that a cafe cannot be fully realised at the Albert Hall. Certainly no reflection on current officers, but a big missed opportunity. Bodies of work were indicated to councillors that they were happening along the way. Particular inclusions at the Albert Hall were to be incorporated to ensure that a viable cafe could be functioning in addition to a catering kitchen. It was almost a non-negotiable, and it's so disappointing that that cannot be fully realised. Notwithstanding, the market says what the market says. 3 people applied, none of them were suitable, and I agree with that. It's not a reflection on the assessment, none of them were suitable. But the fact that there's not enough demand to support a standalone cafe at the Albert Hall seems crazy to me, and perhaps that will be my next life, who knows. But it beggars belief. The City of Gastronomy, one of Australia's prime parks, the number 2 tourist attraction in northern Tasmania. Strange if you can't make something work there. What I also want to say is that people are commenting to me far more positively about the experience of seeing shows at the Albert Hall than I was expecting. They haven't seen a musical there yet. I'm not sure that that'll work, but certainly seeing the TSOs, seeing the Wolf Brothers, seeing the stand-up comedians, seeing a children's show, all of those are working, which is fantastic and definitely appreciated by Launcestonians. Want to also say that I think the way that we took a project and we realised that opening the doors to a foyer without doing anything to make the functionality or the internals of the building work at the same time will speak for me, significant volumes in terms of the next item that's coming. Because council identified that if you're spending all this money, you need to do the work properly. Because if you open the doors and people say, how did you spend all the money other than the foyer, and the actual space doesn't work, you may as well have not spent the money. So I want to thank the Chelsea and the team. Chelsea's been with the project over a few iterations and worn a few different hats and been in a few different roles and had a few different people working alongside her. But we've got to the point that we have, and that is a functional Albert Hall that is being embraced by the community, being used by hirers, which is what we want, and most importantly for me, being managed day to day by a very competent team.
Great, thanks Councillor Gibson. Further contributions? Okay, anything further to close, Councillor Harris? Putting it to the vote. All those in favour? All councillors present. Motion is carried. Okay, we move now to the Princess Theatre auditorium seats. 19.3. Before we do get to the recommendation, councillors have been circulated an alternate, so I'll be providing the opportunity to Councillor Marsden to proceed with the alternate motion being the substantive motion for debate.
Thank you, Mayor. I stand today to move my alternative motion of item 19.3, that Council, 1, resolves as an alternative to the proposed seating reuse scheme to approve in principle the purchase of new auditorium seating and 2, request further investigation and stakeholder engagement, including assessment of seating options, comparative costs, seating capacity outcomes and patron comfort, with a report to be presented to Council for review and approval within 3 months.
Thank you, Councillor Marsden. And just as we did previously with Councillor Walker, just getting some clarification from the officers around time implications, budgetary implications, and also around the phrasing for part 2 and how that impacts those discussions. What does consultation, what might it look like? If this is approved, what does that look like? What's required? And does this, and I'll get clarification from Councillor Marsden around if this is achieving, Councillor Marsden, if it's your intention to maintain a specific level of number of seats and what that looks like also, and how this basically implies that or not. Thank you. You've got that one there too.
Oh yeah, look, thanks for the motion, Councillor Marsden. Look, I suppose the necessity here is to make sure that we do the stakeholder engagement bit of this correct. If we choose to do new seats, we introduce a new element to the Princess Theatre where no one, not even I, have seen the seats that the proposed numbers have been modelled on. We haven't sat in them, we haven't seen them, we don't have any baseline to judge how comfortable they are or what particular issues they may arise into the future. So I think there's a cost implication obviously, but we want to make sure the stakeholder engagement is earnest and true and proper, because we don't want to be back here again being accused of making the wrong decision in terms of the seats, new versus old.
I think there's also, aside from the cost, there's a completely unknown time implication here. We're on a schedule based on the approved scope and the approved budget, and that's what Michael's time is dedicated to. If we decide to add this into the scope, We will have to look at the program, what consultants will need to be involved, procurement, all those things that you were made aware of in preparing this motion. And at this point in time, we're not able to provide definitive timeframes. Our hope would be that that could be done within the 2 years where we have it closed for everything else. But can we sit here hand on heart and say that's achievable? Given the number of unknowns, then no, I wouldn't feel comfortable committing to that time frame today.
Probably just with respect to the 3-month time limit included in the motion, I'd probably say that that's going to be, that'll be a real stretch. I don't think I can achieve a full result in terms of stakeholder consultation, quotation, tender process within 3 months. So happy to give an update at 3 months, but I don't think I could. That's just not an achievable time.
And just also around the questioning for that consultation, just a broad question. What's required for that? Is that required? If that was to be something that wasn't achieved through this proposed or this now substantive motion, what's the requirement of council to do that instead of just saying we're going to buy new seats?
Council isn't forced to engage on the seats, but I would say that the process regarding considering the seats and whether we reuse or replace has certainly been a very consultative process, and I think the stakeholders, including the operator and the users of the theatre, have appreciated being involved. That being said, who would want to be the person that would select the new seat and deal with the criticism that flows from that if it's not perceived to be fit for purpose by a range of stakeholders? So I think the best chance of success is going forward in a collaborative manner. That being said, the architect could specify a seat based on achieving a particular seat count, but then we may find ourselves in this position 4 years from now where we're receiving criticism because of the leg room, the arrangement, and I think it's important to note the tension that exists between high seating numbers versus patron comfort for a couple of hours. So I think those are two things that have been really difficult throughout this process and through officer recommendation around reuse versus new. That's a tension that won't go away through this process. And then we're bringing in another element with a chair with a different thickness seat, a different thickness back, different specifications, different size armrests. There's a range of things that will need to be considered.
Thank you. Now, Councillor Marsden, having moved the motion, I believe there was some correspondence around further amendments. Councillor Harris? Well, it depends. Do we want to move something that then we have to change, or do we want to move something altogether?
I'm happy to. It has to be a seconder first, I thought. Yeah.
Right, okay. So I'm saying Councillor Harris is the seconder. Okay, that's what I was just checking. Sorry, I got one step ahead of myself. Okay, so Councillor Marsden has moved, seconded by Councillor Walker. Okay.
Just so that we can get it all on one.
Yep.
And debate that, because I do think that.
Can I just interrupt? Because I'm just seeing some questions around the table. Can we just check with governance around that we're doing this in the right order and that we're getting it correct? Yep, thanks, Councillor Gibson.
If I may, so you can only deal with one motion at a time, and so this is the amendment. The amendment needs to be considered, and then if Councillor Harris wishes to further change what will become the substantive motion, absolutely he can do that. We can go on with as many amendments as we like, but we can only deal with one at a time.
So even with Councillor Marsden's being the substantive motion from the start?
So thank you through the chair. As I understand, the motion that has actually been moved, not the one printed in the agenda, it's actually been Councillor Marsden. So, and that can happen. So it's not an amendment. That is actually the motion that has been moved and seconded by Councillor Walker. Therefore, that motion is in play. And at this time, if Councillor Harris is rising to speak and therefore use that opportunity to move an amendment, then that amendment will be as per what has been moved and seconded. What has been printed in the report has not been moved or seconded.
That's what we're doing.
I would encourage that. Yes.
Councillor Marsden.
Thank you, Matt. There has been, obviously a long history with the seating that went into the Princess Theatre 10 years ago. And I don't think we can take away from how significant this redevelopment of the Princess Theatre and the new construction of the Arts is, and the cost that comes with that. I believe that if we don't get the seating right, and I don't believe a reuse scheme would get the seating right, that people will say, like Councillor Gibson did previously about the Albert Hall, where did you spend all the money on? The new seats would be one of the only improvements to the auditorium throughout this process. It's very much a disability access refit for the Princess Theatre. The general public won't necessarily see a great deal of that because it's the back of house and there's some elements in the front of house. I truly believe that if we close down the Princess Theatre for 2 years at least, the theatre-going public that have been denied that space to enjoy live theatre, and notwithstanding the impacts that the closing this theatre will have on restaurants, hospitality businesses, and accommodation, if we go back with our beautiful new refurbished Princess Theatre that no one will really see, and the first thing they see when they step into the auditorium is those same old seats, I don't necessarily think they will go, oh, that's all right, they're new seats, but they've been spaced a bit better, so that's great. I honestly think it would be, the optics of that would be dreadful for the council. And I can see that, I'll give a bit of history on the seats. Whoever selected them 10 years ago, unfortunately selected a seat that was not fit for purpose on a raked floor. They're perfect in a tier arrangement, and that's why they work so great in the dress circle upstairs. So they started to install the seats, and they got a process through that where someone decided to take a seat in the seats to test them out and realised there's a massive problem. The spacing is too tight. Even though they spaced them at where they would normally space a theatre seat, there was a seat not fit for that particular purpose. So they ripped up the seats and reinstalled them again. So installing them for the second time. But they did so in a compromised way. They decided that they're not going to give a full leg room so that they could maintain capacity. And that came from the theatre. The theatre managers don't want to lose a capacity under 900 because for a regional theatre like the Princess Theatre, capacity and comfort is king. And I believe that the Theatre North roughly at 70% of their bookings in income come from mainland touring shows. And very much promoters, when they look at the incredible financial risk of bringing a show from the mainland to Tasmania, because it's incredibly expensive, they look at theatre capacity. For them, it's just about, no, that theatre's out, it doesn't meet the right capacity. Even if we respace the old seats and we'll have a greater level of comfort, Theatre North run the risk of losing potentially 70% of their income. I know personally that they do not want to lose seating below 900, and that's a magical figure. And some people might argue that, would that really stop a travelling show from coming? But I would say it would, most definitely. And there's no real appetite in not getting the job right. So we inherited this concern with the seating. But we've also inherited the opportunity to get it right. And I think if we don't look at new seating, which gives us the comfort and gives us a capacity over 900 seats, if we don't make that a reality, then the theatre-going public will simply say, what was this all for? Why did you close down the theatre for over 2 years, deny us the access of live theatre, the ability for escapism, which is what obviously live performance does, and you've still enforced us to sit back in your old seats? I think, personally, that would be a legacy that I would not want to keep as a councillor, to be the councillor who comes from a theatrical background, allowed the seats to remain the same seats. And I just I ask all of my fellow councillors to seriously think about whether we want the Princess Theatre to be another facility that we cut corners on and didn't achieve what we wanted to achieve, or whether we want to have a Princess Theatre which will be future-proofed for the next 30 to 40 years, which is the lifespan of a theatrical seat, and something that we should be proud of and not embarrassed about. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Marsden. Councillor Walker is the seconder.
Thank you, and through you, Chairs, the mover of the motion just said he is a theatre person. I think everyone knows that, and I think everyone knows that I'm not a theatre person. I did used to build sets for theatres, though, and I remember building sets for Princess Theatre and having to take into account the actual access to actually just load them in and build them of a size that would actually fit into the building. So perhaps I should have looked into that a little bit in these designs. But I do respect and hear what Councillor Marsden, through you, Chair, is saying, and I do take that on board, and that's why I stood to second this motion. That the theatre experience, and we know that Launceston is a theatre city, and we should celebrate that and be proud. The theatre experience is one that will be paramount. When this place opens again, it will be the first thing that people say is, well, they didn't do anything with the seats. And it'll be the last thing that we want to hear after spending now, as has been recently quoted in the media, $43 million on this particular renovation project, up from $30 million previously. And this, no doubt, will add to that figure, to that bottom line. And so you might question why Councillor Walker, who has probably had some opinions to share about the costs involved in this, let's be honest, we're talking about $1,500 per ratepayer. That's what we're talking about that's going into this redevelopment. So you might wonder why I'm standing to do this, and it is because once, as a council, we are committed to this project, we have to do it well. I know there are other ways that we could save money on this project, and I've indeed argued them around this table. That's been in closed council, so I can't particularly, speak to the details of those. And I'm all for saving money, but I'm also all for doing a job right, doing it once and doing it well. One thing I would like to ask is on, or to suggest perhaps, but certainly I'm happy for the council officers to comment on it. I note that this doesn't particularly address the repurposing of the seats specifically. And, I do wonder whether perhaps the existing seats could be repurposed in a rebuilt Earl Arts Centre, for example. Now, I'm sure that is something that can come out of this this study if this motion is successful today. I think we all know now that repurposing seats for theatres is not necessarily going to be a cheap exercise, but it's certainly something that if we don't do, we know in 2 years' time, not just us, but the whole city, the theatre-going public will forever regret that decision. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Walker. And I'll just take the question that was in there around, if this is a successful motion, is there any plans or is there any scope around the seats that still have quite a bit of life in them?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it would be unacceptable if we didn't try and find a second home for the seats and just disposed of them. Whether or not they fit within the Earl Arts redevelopment project, I don't think so. I think the design's been done around a certain seat diameter and pitch and everything else. It's just a different type of seat.
Thank you. Okay, now I did have Councillor Harris.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Yes, so I also stand to support Councillor Marsden's motion because right at the start I identified that as he has, re-entering the theatre after what was then a $30 million redevelopment and still having the old seats in the auditorium was simply not going to satisfy theatre goers after all the complaints we've had for the previous 10 years. However, I'd like to just add another request to, or an amendment to the motion. All of us received a note from the Encore Theatre Company about what they felt was missing from what is proposed, and that was a hydraulic orchestra pit. Now, if we're doing a $40 million plus redevelopment of the theatre, the installation of a hydraulic orchestra pit has, I believe, been considered but rejected at a point in time by the steering committee. However, I haven't seen those figures, and neither has anyone else around this table, I'd suspect. And as such, to then have the major theatre user, or certainly of the biggest user as far as number of patrons are concerned, a hydraulic orchestra pit currently is manually set up, and it takes 8 men a day to do so, to install it, and the same to uninstall it, at a cost of around $4,000 to the hirer of the theatre. A hydraulic orchestra pit would obviously take that cost away from them, but also perhaps allow more people to use an orchestra pit because it's simply a push of the button to raise or lower the orchestra pit. However, I have no idea what that would cost, and so I would add a third line to our motion, and that's request investigation of the cost to install a hydraulic orchestra pit with a report to be presented to Council for future review and possible approval. It would simply be coming back to us. Contractor provides a quote. I believe there is only one company in Australia that does orchestra pit hydraulics, and as such would be able to give us a price. We would then be able to consider that, because if you're going to be digging up the Princess Theatre, you don't want to be doing it in 3 years' time. You want to be doing it now. And I think we need to all consider that option and then make a call as quickly as possible. I won't put a 3-month or 6-month time frame on it, but obviously as quickly as possible will enable the contract to go forward and any variances that might occur as a result of it. So that is my amended motion, to add a third line as shown on the screen. Other than that, I do support this motion. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Harris. And just ensuring that we're getting our governance correct, I do believe, but I will take support and comment from the CEO and from Kelsey Governance around this now needing a seconder. So for the hydraulic lift to be added to the current proposal, the current motion, somebody to second. Councillor, if I'm doing something incorrectly, please somebody let me know also. So Councillor Britton has seconded. So this now becomes Councillor Harris's motion. For we debate that.
Fundamentally, I absolutely agree in what was included in the scope of projects early on with regard to an orchestra pit, and I will support it wholeheartedly. I'm just not sure in terms of a motion that it has the scope of auditorium seats. I think it's a very fine line to suggest that the scope of the whole project could be considered by adding in that additional line item today. I agree with it. I mean, I just think it's changing significantly the parameters of what the original authored report was about. I mean, you could argue that the orchestra pit sits below the chairs, but it's a pretty fine line. If it was a notice of motion about the orchestra pit individually, I will 100% support it, but I just think from a technicality perspective, it's probably not a legal amendment.
Thank you through the Chair, and Governors, please correct me if I get it wrong. Whilst I don't disagree with Councillor Gibson that ideally this body of work would be best to come by way of a notice of motion, if a mover of the amendment wishes to move so in line with this, then I believe it could actually be accepted, but I would absolutely agree with Councillor Gibson in the respect that it is very different to what the report and very different to what the original motion has put. Similar in the context that we are still talking about, however, Princess Theatre and some potential expenditure associated to the Princess Theatre. Yep.
Okay, so it's been seconded. So now we debate the addition of number three. But it will start. Councillor Harris has spoken to it already in his movement, so we go to the seconder. Councillor Britton. This is Good day.
This is my
Oh,
word.
mate, are we?
Look, I had some fancy things to say, and I won't say them. Ultimately, oh, maybe I will. If you're waiting, if food's taken too long to go out to a restaurant, table in a restaurant, right? You just hope that when it gets there, okay, 10 or 15 minutes late, it tastes good, it is what it is, and the customers are happy. Okay. If you wash your car and you don't do the wheels, your car still looks dirty. All right. If you redo your kitchen and you leave some terrible old 25-year-old Fisher Paykel white fridge in it, okay, it doesn't look done. If we get this right and we increase comfort and capacity, when people walk in there after 2 years and they would have scolded us for 43 or who knows how much more millions, when they walk in and they see something and they're comfortable and the users of the theatre can put more people in there, it's a no-brainer, to be honest. So
And the orchestra pit?
And being a... Yeah, let's go with the orchestra pit as well. Absolutely. Thank you, I'm all for it.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, we're just debating the third edition, the amendment, as a starting point. I've got Councillor Gibson and then Councillor Walker.
Thanks. Given that it's able to be added, I'll be supporting it. We're investigating it. The installation of the hydraulic orchestra pit was definitely included in some of the original scope conversations. Whether or not it's fallen off the current one, it was 100%. I was in the meetings where it was discussed, where the architects who are theatre experts presented and spoke about it, and I think where certainly Theatre North staff had it on their original wish list. So definitely the investigation of it will come back with, this is the cost. This was the cost that was included in it. It'll be such an easy task. It won't be a consultant. It won't be anyone other than a 5-second piece of work. This was the costing, and this is why it was removed, because in order to achieve the project within the scope, we had to cut things. And there were lots of things that were cut. So investigate the installation of a hydraulic orchestra pit with a report to come to Council for review. It should be a very easy task, and I'll be supporting the addition of it.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Gibson. And just around that as well, let's get some clarification from our Executive Leader and from the scoping and some answers to those questions.
Yeah, so Michael, jump in if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that per the report that you have in front of you, unless we keep the existing seats, there is a reduction in seating. Is that correct? And so the comment that was recently made around getting new chairs and making sure maintaining current seating numbers is currently unknown. So until we figure out what the chair is and the spacing, we won't know the seating implications. But per the report you have now, none of the options except keeping the existing result in an uplift in the number of seats. So I just wanted to provide that clarification. We will know more once we know more about what potential new chairs on the basis of whatever decision you make here. The other comment would be that the design brief released to the market identified the hydraulic pit, and I have a copy of it here, as a consideration, not a definitive deliverable. So I think there has been some misunderstanding. We've been going on a process and it's certainly being discussed, but as of the DD drawings in May 2024, I have copies of those in my office. It's clearly listed as pit, not in scope. There's been a number of steering committees over that period. But in effect, the pit was conceptually discussed throughout this process, but at no point was it ever financially embedded in the project scope. So I just want to make sure we're on the same page around that. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Further contributions to the amendment, which is number 3, the hydraulic lift pit orchestra. Councillor Walker.
Yeah, thank you. And look, while I do, and it really is the Chair's call whether this amendment is a substantive change or not, I do believe it is actually a substantive change. I think the only two things they have in common is that we're asking for an investigation. So, and you know, they're completely different things, and it should have been a separate motion. So I would argue this is not an amendment that should have been allowed. Nonetheless, here we find ourselves. We are only asking for investigation into the amount, and so we're going to kick the can down the road in a sense, and there's still going to be a future decision to be made once those assessments are made. So on that sense, I'm happy with it, and we'll support it, and I move that the motion be put.
Oh, nice. It doesn't matter what I was going to ask you now then. Okay, procedural motion. The motion has been put. So the motion that we're debating is the amendment. So there'll be no more discussion on the addition of number 3. It'll just now, if this is seconded and voted on, we'll go to a vote. Okay, so second, the motion to be put from Councillor Walker has now been seconded by Councillor Britton. All those in favour? All councillors present, the motion is put. So now we vote on the amendment becoming part of the substantive motion.
Now that becomes part of the motion.
No. Yeah. So now that has become part of the substantive motion that we discuss now.
So, sorry. For clarification, there was a substantive motion moved by Councillor Walker and seconded by Councillor Britton. The motion be put, which has been carried. Now a vote
we're voting
must
on
be taken. Debate has ceased.
Number 3.
On the amendment forming the motion.
Yeah, so that vote just then was for it to be put, so it's been put, but we still have to resolve we still have to put it. We still have to resolve that number 3 is to be added or not. So just to clarify, notice the motion to put, Councillor Walker, seconded by Councillor Britton, then we vote. We voted, so we put, which means that now discussion is closed on the item of addition number 3, the amendment. So now we vote whether that becomes a part of the substantive motion. No. We still haven't added. We haven't said yes. We haven't said that we're going to add. Cool. Okay, so now we're voting to add Councillor Harris's amendment to the original motion, which will become the substantive motion. It's been... Oh, we're just voting. Voting. All those in favour of adding the hydraulic lifted part to the substantive motion for continued discussion? The amendment. All councillors present, the motion is carried. Councillor Harris's amendment becomes a part of the motion to be discussed and to be decided on now for resolution, which originally was Councillor Marsden's. I think we've done all that really quite well. Although slow. Okay, so now, well, we can still talk to this one. Those that haven't already spoken to it, that is, who I did note, Councillor Gibson and well, still count yours, Councillor Harris, because even though your speaking was to put yours forward. Councillor Britton.
Can I vote the motion be put?
Okay. Well, it's got to be voted on. Still has to. So Councillor Britton has now moved a procedural motion in which the substantive motion to be put. It's got to be seconded, and it means that all discussion on the seats and now the hydraulic lifter ceases and goes straight to a vote after this vote, in which we'll direct council officers to do what's written. Cool? Seconded. Notice of procedural motion to put, Councillor Britton, seconded by Councillor Walker. All of those in favour to put and cease discussion? Those against? Councillor Gibson, Councillor Palmer, Councillor Marsden and Councillor Kai are against putting the motion. The motion is carried, we put, and now we cease discussion on what's on the screen and we vote on the motion. So just to ensure that everybody is clear, it's all here. This is what we're now voting on. Can we just ensure that it is not... Yeah, that's okay. I appreciate that there's a little bit going on. That's cool. So we've added the third point. No, that was voted. That's passed. You voted to continue conversation, and that got outvoted. Okay. So here, we're voting now. Everyone's just got clear reference of what's on the screen. Putting it to the vote. All those in favour? That's all councillors present. The motion is carried. There you go. There you go, Deputy Mayor. Deputy Mayor resumes. Everyone's walking in, raising their eyebrows. Okay. Oh, hello, Rosanna. How are you? Okay. Just ensuring before we move on to 19.4, I just want to check with the CEO and governance that we've covered over what we needed to. We don't have to come back to it a little bit later and go, oh, hang on a minute, you did that wrong. So we're all good to continue on. 19.4 is that council endorses submissions at Homes Tasmania, which is 102 to 106 Lilydale Road, the Rocherley Master Plan. I don't have any noted speakers to this one, so we'll continue to the recommendation, being that council endorses the submission, it's a draft, for 102 to 106 Lilydale Road as published for lodgement with Homes Tasmania. This has to be done by the 11th of March this year, and it also continues to seek collaboration and opportunities with Homes Tasmania to deliver quality housing outcomes, particularly in the northern suburbs. Somebody please to move. It's been moved by the Deputy, seconded by Councillor Britton. Deputy Mayor.
Feeling like I was missing out on something. Yeah, look, I stand to support this motion. I must admit I misread it and thought we were supporting Homes Tasmania going ahead and doing what they were doing, but this is actually not what we're doing. I think we had a workshop a couple of weeks ago which explained the situation in regards to Homes Tasmania wanting to rezone and develop home lands up in Rocherley at the whatever address, 102 to 106 Lilydale Road. Lots of conversations gone on. They'd previously sort of already done French's land a little bit further along on Lilydale Road. They've got an approval for homes to be built in Wildor Crescent, and a couple of weeks ago we approved some more subdivision work out at Techno Park, which enabled them to give things. To me, we've given them ample land in which to sort of develop land to develop properties to enable people to purchase land that may be under the government scheme. This is about making sure that we appropriately zone our land and make sure that we develop the city the way that we want to do. We've gone to great lengths in recent times to develop the St Leonard's plan, plans out at Newnham, currently looking at South Prospect and others, where we're doing a complete neighbourhood plan. This sort of sits outside of what we actually want to do. We want to develop neighbourhoods in a way that they will function into the future. And one of my concerns is, particularly in a low socioeconomic area, by just adding more houses to the list without any plan, without any services that have been planned for there, isn't good planning. We may or may not have the opportunity to stop this from going forward based on the way that the planning scheme works, and the state government can actually override through the Planning Commission to enable this to happen. I therefore think that we should write our submission, or send our submission, which is explaining out all of those areas and much more than what I've just said. But I think the second part of the motion is equally important, that we need to collaborate with them, because if they decide to go forward with whatever they decide to go forward with, we'd like to be part of the conversation to ensure that we get the best outcomes that we can get if that's where we go down the way. But along the way, hopefully we can use our influence to ensure that we get proper planning for Launceston, and that they will seek advice from us, work with us to get the best outcomes that we can. So I endorse what's been put forward today.
Excellent, Deputy Mayor. And just noting some of your comments then around that relationship, neighbourhood planning and master planning, just some clarification through the Executive Leader to Richard around what number 2 means and what we are doing in that space.
So we have a meeting scheduled with Homes Tasmania for next week, and we've had some preliminary discussions about what avenues we can to collaborate and what funding packages may be available for us to work together in a similar way that we achieved Commonwealth funding for the St Leonard's project, which allowed us to do a level of planning that we wouldn't necessarily normally do. That was a $400,000 project to make sure that we did all the underpinning work to underpin the success of that plan. At the moment, in terms of the documentation underpinning the proposal at the moment, it's significantly lacking in our view. And so our interest in this is working with them to see if we can access the funding to actually do a comprehensive job in a similar vein to we've done in St Leonard's. So we're going to try and advance that next week, and we'll know more after that.
Great, thank you. Councillor Britton is the seconder.
Thank you. I'll just start with the question. Will that be the first kind of constructive meeting we've had with them in that regard, or do we meet with them a lot?
We've met with them a number of times. We've met with the officers dealing with the plan on the technical issues a number of times, but we haven't necessarily had meetings specifically on collaboration and funding. We've had a number of informal discussions about what might be possible, but we haven't actually sat down and worked it out collaboratively about what we may be able to do. At this point, that meeting happens next week.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, look, I don't have too much more to add. Obviously, it did come to us in workshop. It doesn't align with anything we're trying to do, and hopefully they listen, and we can work with them in the future. Thanks.
Right, thank you. Councillor Gibson.
Thanks. I think the important thing here is, and it's something that other councils have struggled with, is that the housing supply order is not a invitation for poor development that sees poor outcomes in terms of the diversity of housing options and thereby poor outcomes and living conditions for new homes. And, you know, the relationship, I think, as Councillor Britton had the opportunity to share, was that the relationship with Homes Tasmania has not been as good as it should be. That is certainly not a reflection on our intent to make it as good as it can be. What I took from the most recent presentation was that there is a willingness now to work with us. Obviously, our strategic work that we've done sets the kind of the parameters of what we're trying to achieve, and there needs to be a way of delivering upon the housing land supply order generally, but also in terms of there being effective and good, in inverted commas, planning outcomes for our community. You know, developing land where the stock and size is all the same, without any shared facilities, without any intent of changing bus stops, without any intent of providing parks and recreational facilities, without any intent in thinking about the ramifications of what just building stock will do, is poor. It's not the way that we want to develop. There is a way of working together to achieve great outcomes and by increasing the amount of stock. And I think this draft, which we're being asked to endorse today, and the work that we're doing sets the tone and could become a benchmark for how you can achieve both in your municipality.
Thanks, Councillor Gibson. Further contributions? Okay. Councillor Walker.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sure councillors are torn in some ways because, of course, if you don't have a roof over your head, you're going to want any land supply available to come to market. And that's the position we find ourselves in. We also have, well, up until recently, I'm not sure if we've got a Homes Tasmania anymore, but we did have a Homes Tasmania who, correct me if I'm wrong, did progress the rezoning of land in Kings Meadows to residential land through a different process, not coming to council to do that. So they have that provision. They have another pathway forward, regardless, in some ways, as to what we say. That's not to say that we should encourage them from poor planning outcomes, which is, you know, unserviced areas where people who might wish to live but don't have the benefit that most other people do of schools, parks, transport, whatever it may be, public transport. So it is a bit of a dilemma because I personally, I want housing. I don't want to be choosy and picky at the moment. I just want housing. I'm sure everyone feels the same way. Can we retrofit suburbs that haven't got these services? Perhaps we can through a local neighbourhood plan that would come, you know, in retrospect in this case. it's not ideal. So I suppose this message is just to say that we're not against the idea, we are just looking for the opportunity to have that neighbourhood plan developed. But do we have that luxury? I suppose that's the question I'm asking at myself right now. Do we have that luxury? If you or I did not have a house at this moment in time and were struggling to find a rental property, would you appreciate a councillor standing here saying, I'm sorry, this is not good enough, we need better, rather than more at the moment? So I'm happy to hear guidance from other councillors on this.
Thanks, Councillor Walker. Any further contributions? Councillor McMahon.
I'd say my answer to you is yes. I think we've been talking about doing things right, and if we're going to be half-baked, then I think that's when problems start to happen. I think this way forward is crucial for successful neighbourhoods, thriving neighbourhoods, and I hope Homes Tasmania see this as a positive relationship between them and council for now and into the future. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any further contributions? Councillor Harris.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Yes, I think that there is time for greater community consultation or consultation between council and Homes Tasmania or whatever they may become in the near future to get the best outcome. There is land that's already been zoned and being sold that hasn't yet been sold for those houses that Councillor Walker is looking for, and so we do have some time to do this. Unfortunately, what has been presented to us saw the development of the subdivision of somewhat more of the same without perhaps having the advantages of knowing what else is likely to happen beside it, that this will actually perhaps reverse engineer what they might have originally thought of what is a good outcome for the Rochalee area. So I think greater consultation between council and Homes Tasmania will in fact result in a better result for the whole community, not just those who end up with a house being built at Rochalee. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further? A question, Councillor Kai.
Yes, so just a question. I was just wondering, when Homes Tasmania becomes Buildings Tasmania, what we're doing affect or have any difference?
We'll continue to collaborate with the state government officers that have carriage of this.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Deputy Mayor to close.
Thank you. Thanks for your input, everybody. I mean, I still sit with the fact that I think there is plenty of land supply in the housing, in the Homes Tasmania repertoire at this point in time, so therefore there's no need to haste. So I believe if we continue to engage and try to get a proper planning process around this, we'll get a better outcome.
Thanks, Deputy. All those in favour? That's all councillors present. The motion is carried. Thank you. Thank you, Executive Leader Chelsea. At 20, we have got delivery and performance. 20.1, we've got delegation under the Local Government Highways Act of 1982. Before I was born. And I don't have any noted speakers, so we'll go to the recommendation. Recommendation being that pursuant to Section 124 of the Local Government Highways Act of 1982, A, Council revokes any previous delegations made by Council in respect to the Government Highways Act, and B, it also delegates to the new holders of the positions that have been outlined in column 1 of the agenda. At 2, it also just refers to those with the names and gives the Mayor the right to evidence those delegations by the signing. And at 3, it notes that the publicly available table that is published as a part of this is referenced in recommendation 1 on page 68 of the agenda. Somebody please to move. Councillor Harris has moved. Seconded. Councillor Priest. Councillor Harris.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, this is largely procedural. There's been a lot of change of titles within the council organisation itself, and as such, what we did some years ago is no longer relevant because those titles have changed. Therefore, it is necessary for us to overrule what we had previously said and somewhat start again and give the appropriate delegations to the new titles. It is simply that. It's because of change within the organisation. There is no other greater change or otherwise behind this. It is simply renaming who the delegation has been given to make it correct from a, I guess, legalistic point of view, so that someone can't take us to court and say that that fine wasn't authorised by someone in the right position. So really just quite straightforward.
Thanks, Councillor Harris. Councillor Priest? I've got a question, Deputy Mayor.
Just like the office to confirm that what Councillor Harris has just said is in fact the case, that we are only changing delegations and there are no other changes to delegation powers.
Through you, Mr Chair, that's correct, Councillor.
Thank you for that clarification. Any further contributions? Nothing further to close, so we'll put to the vote. All those in favour? That's all councillors present. The motion is carried. Okay, another delegation here at 20.2. He's probably not listening. Delegation from the council to the CEO around burial and cremation regulations, which have come into play with the 2025 Tasmanian regulations that we saw. No noted speakers, so the recommendation is that council delegates all of its functions and powers as cemetery manager under the Burial and Cremation Regulations 2025 to the position of the Chief Executive Officer. At 2, it is pursuant to section 64(1)(b) of the LGA, authorises the CEO to delegate the functions and powers to an employee. And then there's the standard ones around CEO means general manager in those interims. Okay, somebody please to move. Well, before we go, yep, that's a fair comment. Before we do that, we'll alleviate any opportunities for questions just for this moment and go to the executive leader for an update.
Thank you, Mayor. I thought it'd be useful just to provide a very high-level overview. So the reason we're bringing this to you today, as noted in the report, the Burial and Cremation Regulations 2015 Act has been replaced by a 2025 version. All we're doing today is seeking to ensure we're in line with the new version.
Great. Thank you very much. So it's been moved by Councillor Harris, seconded by Councillor Britton. Councillor Harris?
Nothing more to add to that other than this is periodically something that must be done to make sure that our council remains across the current version of the Act.
Thank you. Councillor Britton?
No, nothing more. Thank you very much to the executive. We could have just asked Alan what it was all about.
Any further contributions? Okay, to the vote. All those in favour? All councillors present. The motion is carried. At 21, we've got strategy and innovation. 21.1 is the NTDC annual report for 24-25 and also the quarterly report for quarter 2. The recommendation being the council receives the annual report and receives the report for quarter 2. Somebody please to move. Councillor Harris has moved. Seconded by Councillor Walker. Councillor Harris, any contribution?
Only to say thank you for the report that we've been receiving from the NTDC, and I would just like to note that as we spoke about some departures that is happening within council, we will also see the departure of the current CEO of Northern Tasmania Development Corporation, Chris Griffin, at the end of this financial year, the 30th of June. And I'd just like to say that during my time here on the council, Chris has done a particularly good job of steering Northern Tasmania Development Corporation to understand what its role can be and is, and it's a credit to him of not only the report that we've now got to him in front of us here today, but also to the staff that they have, because working for NTDC is a difficult role, and it is something that has for a long time been a bit of a poison chalice around the Northern Tasmania, because we've had many iterations of NTDC and we've never quite seemingly got it right. But Chris has done a very good job to do the very best that he can, and I'd like to wish him well for his future. But today we're just receiving these 2 reports. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Harris. Councillor Walker as a seconder. Any further contributions? Okay, to the vote. All those in favour? All councillors present. The motion is carried. Moving on to 21.2, we've got the Kaluwaluka Tamar Infrastructure and Amenities Master Plan. So this recommendation is to receive the report on the launch of that infrastructure and amenities master plan, and it also continues to support and collaborate with all levels of government and key stakeholders to advance the next steps of this project. So that's the direction of council. Somebody please to move. Councillor Harris moved, seconded by Councillor Walker. Councillor Harris.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, though some of us attended the launch of the master plan by Tempt, and this is just to receive that report. It has lots of long-term plans and strategies associated with that, including the provision of walk and cycleways along both sides of the Tame at Kalamalooka, and also even a footbridge across it. So it is very important that we do continue to support and collaborate with all levels of government, because council certainly cannot bring such a broad master plan into being without the support of both the state and federal government. So to be congratulated that we've got this plan, and look forward to it being implemented as quickly as we can, understanding the current budget financial difficulties that not only council but state and I'm sure federal government will have as well.
Thanks, Councillor Harris. Councillor Walker, then a question with the Deputy.
Thank you. Yes, and I did also attend that launch with Councillor Harris, I think perhaps Councillor Pentridge, and of course yourself, Mayor, who spoke at that event, which was well attended by various luminary figures involved in this. Of course, our CEO is our representative on Tempt, I do believe, and it would be probably good for Launceston at some point to hear his perspective on the report and Launceston Council's, indeed our community's involvement in it. I note things like the key proposals in the master plan include upgrading existing amenities and recreational spaces in the area, transforming Kings Wharf industrial buildings into a destination that celebrates the area's marine and industrial heritage. Talk about blue sky thinking. I mean, I don't even think that we or the state government own those buildings. Certainly Tempt don't. But nonetheless, you know, by all means, let's speculate about the future of those buildings. I do believe that the wharf facility there is owned by a Victorian company, the
Shiplift.
The Shiplift, yes. But by all means, let's celebrate that industrial heritage. New and extended safe walking and cycling routes, as previous speaker refers to, and a multi-use water recreation facility on the west side of the estuary, including a multi-user pontoon access and an environmentally appropriate slipway for keelboat yachts. This is going to be great. And I look forward to the day that these are actually built. But in the meantime, there's probably a mountain of work between there and now and there, rather. And I do appreciate the vision that is being delivered with this, the beautification, the celebration of our river, us as a city turning to face our river again, as we did when this city was established 220 years ago. Maybe it wasn't a city then, but when it was a river, it was a sea port. It was, as all of Tasmania was accessed by sea. This is our modern day origins, and so we do need to face back towards the river. There are many good ideas in here in terms of not just the beautification, but the celebration of our waterway, and it will bring that beautification, but also bring practical experiences. Whether it does turn out to be a bridge, a pedestrian bridge across the river or not is another matter. But the idea that these things are being talked about and are generating interest, and I do believe this has generated quite a lot of interest. And so I do congratulate Tempt on, reaching that bit further, having those aspirations, and let's have that conversation as a community, because if we do embrace some of these things, then they will actually happen. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Question, Deputy Mayor.
I just noticed on page 14 we talk about flood risk and future projections. I just want to make sure that we're not missing the interface with the flood mitigation studies that are going on at the moment. I mean, we made this comment yesterday in emergency management as to what that flood mitigation report might do, because I think that's important that that's taken into consideration in determining what the future looks like, and the plan might be fine, but if our flood mitigation report comes back and gives us some different solutions, to make sure that there's an interface there. I'm assuming it is through the Flood Authority, but I just want to make sure that we don't miss the opportunity to ensure that everyone's informed on that.
I can assure you that that's integral to the discussions, and particularly the forum has been through the wetlands committee that's working on this. Rosanna may want to add to what I've said.
Thank you, councillors. Yes, of course, it's part of the process, and our flood staff have been involved with the development of the master plan, so they've had their eyes across it. And of course, the master plan is really a high-level document, and it will obviously rise to the surface, excuse the pun, when the detailed design plans are done for any of the particular projects that are being contemplated.
Great. Further contributions? Anything to close, Councillor Harris? Okay, to the vote. All those in favour? All councillors present, the motion is carried. At 22 and 22.1, we have got the CEO network. We've got representation at ALGA for this year's coming National General Assembly. Recommendation being that it approves the Mayor, Councillor Kai, Councillor Priest and Councillor Marsden to attend, and these dates are in Canberra for the 23rd and 25th of June. No, I'm not going to... You can declare if you want to declare an interest, but it's always up to the councillors to do so. Cool. Okay, with there being no further? Yep, okay. So the Deputy Mayor has moved, seconded by Councillor Walker. Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, thank you. I don't want to speak long. I'm happy to endorse this, but I think just going into the future, depending on what number of councillors we actually have, that we ought to end up with a policy which says that if it's 9, it's 2 plus the Mayor, 2 plus the Mayor, so that through the council term, the next period, all councillors get an opportunity to attend.
Great, thank you. Councillor Walker is the seconder.
Happy to endorse this list, along with yourself, of course, Mayor, councillors who I don't believe have previously been to this event, and look forward to the reporting back from their experiences.
Yeah, they're good. Thank you. Any further contributions? Okay, to the vote. All those in favour? I'm going to abstain from voting on my own thingy. Yep. So those that are in question, we need to get some real governance around this, because we find that we have this conversation all the time. It's the same with voting on your own leave and so forth. So
It's a compulsory part of what we do. This should be endorsed.
yes. Yeah, so can I have some guidance? Got any guidance from governments around? I think it's really important, but the voting in general.
Thank you, through the chair. Given it is a direct relation to your role as a councillor, I don't see how there's a personal benefit or a pecuniary gain individually.
So how does governance view? We should have asked this question a long time ago. How does governance view around voting on something that you're specifically involved in? I know that there's no pecuniary or personal gain, but do I vote on my own?
Through the chair,
as in vote on my own motion.
My advice would be you're quite well within your right to vote for your own attendance, and equally, as you just mentioned, in terms of leave of absence, there is no gain in voting for your own leave of absence either.
Okay. Great. Thank you. It's something I think needs to be a little bit stronger in the sector of understanding. Cool. Okay, putting it to the vote then. All those in favour? All count. Those against? Councillor McMahon against? The motion is carried. Okay, we've got 22.2, more representation. Representation at the City Nation Place Conference and Main Street Awards, 6th to the 7th. The recommendation is that the Mayor go. It's the 6th of the 7th of August this year. Somebody please to move. Deputy Mayor's moved, seconded. Councillor Britton, Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, I'd give some thought to this on the basis we're probably heading into a period of going into election time, so just making sure we've got that. I remember 4 years ago I put my hand up to go to a conference in Sydney, which was all about IT and how we could get efficiencies, and I put a report back to council, I think, which might have been the first meeting of the new council, I think, in fact. And I do value these things, and I think something like mainstream, we as a city want to be going ahead. We want to be seen to be looking at what is out there in relation to other cities and what they're doing to try and improve our outcomes. So the proviso is that we get a good report back from the Mayor probably within 2 or 3 weeks of when he comes back from it, so that we can actually act on it or actually start working on it in this term. Otherwise I support it because I think it's an important thing that we do.
Thank you. Councillor Britton?
Thank you. I feel the same way. As long as we do see something positive come out of it and some actionable points, I'm sure this is part of the role. So that's where I see it.
Thank you. Further contributions? Councillor Walker.
Just a question. Does council administration intend sending any staff to this particular event?
Thank you. Through the Chair, I'm aware the Executive Leader of Connections and Livability will likely attend, and I'm aware Launceston Central will also be attending.
It's also important to note that there was an email from the Office of the Mayor for if any other councillors wanted to attend also. Yeah, great question. Thank you. Sorry, I didn't see further contributions. Councillor McMahon?
I'm reluctant to approve this one also for a sitting member. I guess at the moment, given that we're so close, as you mentioned, to the next election, that's potentially why I didn't approve the $14,800 for people to go to Canberra. I just feel like the time that we have to actually action anything that comes out of this or any potential things that come out of trips away from June onwards is quite limited, but definitely support staff attending.
Thank you. Further contributions? Anything to close, Deputy Mayor? Okay, putting it to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Councillor Gibson, Walker, McMahon, Pentridge and Harris are against. What was that one? Do that again. I wasn't counting. It's carried. No, it's carried. The CEO said it's carried. Thank you. Yeah. We just check with governance that they've got that covered. Cool. Excellent. Thank you. We have no late items that have been identified as a part of this agenda, so we now move forward to closed council. We've got the recommendation being that council moves into closed council to consider the published matters that are in the available agenda to the public. Somebody please to move that we move to closed. Got Councillor Harris, seconded. Councillor Palmer. All those in favour? All councillors present, the motion is carried. We're moving to closed. Okay, we're on air and switched over already, councillors. So looking at somebody please to move that the table is correct and true record of what was spoken of and discussed in closed council. All good with that? We've got Councillor Harris has moved, seconded. Councillor McMahon, all those in favour? All councillors present, the motion is carried. We move to end the meeting at 4:51 with the next meeting held here on the 19th of March at 1 o'clock.